Important update about YouTube playlists. Hey everyone. We've received many messages asking why our YouTube playlists aren't showing up. Do we create YouTube playlists? Yes, we absolutely do. So why can't you see them? Honestly, we're not sure. We've been in contact with YouTube support for several months now, but we still haven't received a clear answer or solution. After much discussion, our team has decided to take matters into our own hands. We believe the issue might be related to the number of playlists we've created on a single channel, possibly too many. Our solution? We're launching 2 additional YouTube channels, giving us a total of 3. This way, we can organize our audiobooks better and avoid the playlist visibility issue in the future. This change only affects our YouTube audience. If you're a patron supporter, you can still access all our audiobooks by visiting the collection menu on Patreon. Thanks so much for your time and continued support. Happy listening. Egyptian myth and Greek legend. They claim that this world truly exists deep within the abyss. That demons dwell there, immortal and undying, and possess the unique power to travel between abyssal layers. Owoshu frowned. That organization. Is it True Celestial Astronomy? Garika exhaled a puff of smoke and nodded. Yes. True Celestial Astronomy's entire purpose for committing murder and conducting blood rituals is to summon such demons. They aim to forge a connection with hell, bring forth those beings, and ultimately become them. That's the doctrine upon which True Celestial Astronomy was founded. To wield demonic power through a human vessel. That's why their ability users are often referred to as demon warlocks. So, the abyss is real? Owoshu asked, brows still furrowed. You're asking something that's out of scope, Garika replied bluntly, once again repeating, we don't know. In the last century, most countries thought True Celestial Astronomy were just lunatics. But over the past decade, an increasing number of mysterious creatures and artifacts have appeared. This has shaken the previously firm belief among world leaders that the abyss is just fiction. Sure, there's some supporting evidence. Some of these things seem to originate from entirely different worlds. But with each country hiding behind information firewalls, no one's managed to present conclusive proof. I see. Owoshu murmured. As for the existence of the abyss, he did believe in it. Just the giant rat that attacked him yesterday was enough proof. No normal rat was that vicious. Still, both the abyss and the mysterious organization studying it, True Celestial Astronomy, intrigued him deeply. If he wanted to gather intel on them and elevate his astronomy society's international standing, Garika's SDS seemed to hold a great advantage. More importantly, he didn't have to pretend to be subservient to the locals. As for the Americans? Hey! Who didn't know how to pay lip service while doing their own thing. And just as a joke, immigrants to Japan were looked down upon by people back home. But immigrants to the US, while also mocked as traitors, somehow always seemed a tier above those who chose Japan. Maybe it was that old sentiment, only America is truly worthy of being our rival. With that thought in mind, Owoshu finally said, so. After telling me all this, I suppose I was never meant to refuse from the beginning, was I? Garika smiled. Personally, I hoped you'd join without resistance. Then I guess your wish has come true. As soon as Owoshu spoke, a pin was handed to him. Chisato grinned as she held it out. Owoshu gave a small smile, thanked her, and signed his name at the bottom of the contract. Chisato cheered, clapping excitedly before slapping Owoshu on the shoulder. I'm Chisato Nishikigi. Looking forward to working with you, new teammate. Owoshu, he replied, extending his hand. Ah. Chisato blinked, then wiped her hand on the cloth tied around her waist before giving him a firm handshake. Good. Garika reached out to retrieve the signed contract and, while scanning it, told Chisato, show our new recruit around the branch. Get him set up with the necessary gear. Hi. Chisato nodded enthusiastically, then waved for Owoshu to follow. Come with me. Owoshu gave Garika a glance, then got up and followed Chisato into the back area. Watching the two disappear into the kitchen, Mika at the bar chuckled. So, we finally managed to rope in a super-powered one, huh? Rope in is a bit unfair, Garika replied lightly. We just left out the tiny detail that, while our department sounds important, we've only existed for less than 2 years. The MPD blocks our recruitment efforts, so we're severely understaffed. She pulled another contract from her briefcase, quickly duplicated Owoshu's signature, and then carefully filed away the original with utmost seriousness. Once everything was done, she sighed. No idea what this kid's abilities are yet, but at least we can say we've officially recruited our first warlock. Should we throw a party? A welcome dinner for the newcomer? Mika asked with a grin. No need. I still have to register his contract with both the MPD and the garrison. Next time. If anything comes up, call me. Safe travels then. As the cafe door creaked shut behind her, Mika watched her retreating figure and shook his head with a sigh, murmuring like an old man, "That kid's got it rough too." Chapter 20, Chisato Nishikigi. After passing through the cafe's kitchen, Owoshu followed Chisato Nishikigi into what appeared to be the residential quarters, finally arriving at a stairwell that led down to what looked like a basement. "By the way, Owoshu, do you know how to use a gun?" Chisato asked casually, mimicking a finger gun gesture and even adding a playful bayu sound effect. "I don't," Owoshu replied with a shake of his head. Growing up under the red flag, he'd never had the chance. Or reason. To learn something like that. "You don't, huh? Ah, that won't do at all," Chisato said, slipping into the tone of a seasoned senior as she led him down the stairs. "Sure, psychic abilities are really handy. In special situations, a surprise attack might even land a one-hit kill. But when it comes to sheer firepower and efficiency, firearms still reign supreme." Reaching a corner at the bottom, Chisato reached out and pressed a section of the wall. With a click, a small keypad popped out. As she typed in the code with practiced ease, she continued, "From what I've heard, in major transnational criminal groups like True Celestial Astronomy and Golden Dawn, only a handful of top brass can ignore bullets altogether. Each one is a major threat listed on international danger lists. But aside from those monsters, most of the others? A bullet works just fine. So yeah, learning to shoot is very important. Besides, in modern society, the threat of superpowers isn't nearly as direct or persuasive as the sight of a gun." She nodded seriously at her own words, then suddenly changed the topic. "By the way, Owoshu, what's your ability?" "Ah. But if it's a secret you can't talk about, then don't worry. I'm just curious, that's all. Just a bit of innocent curiosity." Hearing her say that, Owoshu raised an eyebrow. He didn't feel particularly wary of this girl. After all, as far as he knew, heroines in anime were usually decent people. Trustworthy enough, at least in the beginning. "My ability is wind. Control over the wind." "Wind element? You're a wind warlock?" Chisato, who was walking ahead, suddenly spun around, eyes wide in delight. "No way. The legendary Ace Scout? Wow, boss really did it. She actually recruited a wind warlock level Ace Scout? Ace Scout?" Owoshu looked puzzled. He honestly couldn't understand why Chisato was getting so excited. "You don't know?" she asked, blinking, then quickly explained. "In our SDS, we lump all special individuals like onmyoji, Taoists, priests, and nuns into the general category of warlocks. And among all those warlocks, wind users are famous for their ability to activate their powers quickly, scan wide areas, and excel at long-range surveillance. They're some of the most renowned scouts around. I heard there's someone back in China who can monitor an entire city just by manipulating wind currents. Sure, wind warlocks might not be the most lethal among warlocks, but their versatility and convenience? Absolutely top tier. I am so jealous of you psychics. All I've got is decent aim with a gun." As she spoke, she made an exaggerated little stomp, brushing her hand against the scarf tied around the back of her head. The motion was cute, and Owoshu's mood became a little complicated. So, wind manipulation was considered top tier for recon? That was kind of awesome. Suppressing his sudden urge to show off, Owoshu let out a quiet sigh and quickly adjusted his mindset. Recon was fine. Maybe even the safest role. After all, most of his scouting would be done via wind, without needing to show up in person. Yeah. That was safer than fighting on the front lines. Led by Chisato, Owoshu arrived at a room in the underground facility. As she rummaged through a pile of clothes, mostly women's clothing, Owoshu asked curiously, "What are you doing?" "Looking for men's tactical uniforms." "Ah, why is it all Mizuki's and Kurami's stuff? Did they seriously turn this place into their personal closet?" She muttered complaints as she searched. Then, suddenly pausing, she turned back toward Owoshu. "Oh, right. I almost forgot. I haven't introduced everyone here yet." As she continued sorting through clothes, she explained, "This base is directly under the SDS Operations Division, led by the boss. The cafe is just our front. The staff here includes me, Mika, and 3 other members, Mizuki Nakahara, Takina Inoue, and Kurami. Mika-san is the cafe manager, but also our combat instructor and the one who keeps in touch with the boss. He handles all our logistics, too. Mizuki is in charge of intelligence collection and verification, while Kurami is a hacker who helps with special gathering and also manages equipment maintenance. Takina and I are partners. We're the front-line fighters, and both of us specialize in firearms." "Ah, found it." Chisato finally pulled a few suits from the back of the cabinet and smiled in triumph. "So that's where it was. Had me searching forever." "What size do you wear, Owoshu?" she asked. After a brief pause, Luoshu gave her his clothing size. Chisato nodded without missing a beat. Ooh, in that case, this one should fit you best. She handed him a sleek black suit. Since all our missions are covert, our younger female members usually pose as high school students. Someone with your height. You'd make a perfect greenhorn office worker. The suit is custom made, apparently from some Onmyo Bureau's special ballistic fiber. It's bulletproof. And it even offers some resistance to psychic abilities. Super expensive, so we only have 2 of these. If it doesn't fit, let me know. Oh, and for washing? Bring it to the cafe. We handle cleaning here. Just then, Chisato paused and gave Luoshu a long, thoughtful look. After confirming that he indeed looked quite young, she suddenly asked, "Oh right, Luoshu. Are you working a part-time job right now? If you are, you might want to quit and transfer here instead." "Oh, and... wait, are you still in school?" Luoshu nodded. "Yeah, I'm a student. Just nearby, at Toyosaki. Lucky that means you get paid to study. Even if you're in class, you still earn your salary. Only downside is when urgent missions come up, things get a little hectic." Chisato spoke with a mix of envy and resignation. "I always wanted to go to school. Never got the chance." Hearing that, Luoshu furrowed his brows and asked, genuinely puzzled, "But Chisato, you don't seem that much older than me. Why didn't you get a chance to go to school?" "Well..." Chisato raised a hand to scratch her cheek awkwardly. After thinking it over, she decided to be honest. "Luoshu, the boss already told you about the abyss, right?" "She did," he nodded. Chisato's expression suddenly turned complicated. "Actually, aside from the boss, everyone in this cafe, including me, came from the abyss." Luoshu froze in shock. Chapter 21, Weapon Selection. Chisato Nishikigi came from the abyss. And not just her. Everyone at the cafe did? Luoshu was still reeling from that revelation when Chisato, arms behind her head in a casual pose, spoke nonchalantly. "When we first arrived in this world, we almost got gunned down by the special assault team from the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. There was a little shootout. If the boss hadn't stepped in to negotiate and use her position to guarantee us safe passage, we probably would have ended up as dissected specimens by now." She dropped her hands and folded them across her chest, looking a bit troubled. "But even with her guarantee, we still weren't allowed to enroll in school. Seriously. Back in my old world, I couldn't go to school because I didn't have an official ID. Now in this world, it's the same thing. It's complicated." "There's really such a thing?" Luoshu asked, clearly stunned. "But came to think of it, Chisato, what exactly is the abyss like?" "Ah, that's hard to say," Chisato replied, scratching her cheek thoughtfully. She crossed her arms and looked up in contemplation. "The world Takina and I came from was, well, pretty normal. The tech was a bit more advanced maybe, but there were no warlocks, no psychics, no demons. Nothing supernatural." She paused, then clarified, "Everyone at the cafe used to work for a government-affiliated agency back there." Wait. Would you call Icarus agents spies?" "Maybe. Close enough. We were doing a weekly deep cleaning at the cafe when it happened. All of us were inside when... bam. We suddenly found ourselves in this world. A bunch of rats, roaches, and stray cats came along with us too. That's actually why we started cleaning in the first place. We spotted all those pests. But once we arrived here, the humans were fine, but those rats and cats? They turned into monsters. And they loved attacking people. Apparently, that's a unique symptom of something called abyssal descent. At least, that's what people here say." Chisato scratched her head awkwardly. "But honestly, if you ask me to explain what the abyss is, I really don't know. One second I was there, and the next, snap, I was here. It just happened. And life back home? Super normal. No weirdness at all. It's this world that's bizarre. Giant rats. Was that where the mutated rats on the news, the so-called radioactive rats, came from? Could ordinary animals crossing from the original world through the abyss really turn into monsters? Then what about humans?" Chisato and the others all seemed perfectly normal. As Luoshu puzzled over that, Chisato, perhaps sensing his curiosity and eager to avoid further questions, swiftly changed the subject. "Oh right. I heard that some special warlocks called spirit mediums have unique eyes that can see creepy things no one else can. But if they respond to those things, even once, those creatures descend from the abyss." Her expression grew suddenly serious as she turned toward Luoshu. "Luoshu-kun, can you help check if there are any weird things hanging around the cafe? Didn't you just say only special warlocks can see those things?" Luoshu asked, deadpan. "Do I look like one of those?" Chisato burst out laughing and patted his shoulder. Haha, I was just messing with you. This cafe is our base of operations, remember? The boss installed all kinds of anti-abyssal barriers here a long time ago. Even if you were a spirit medium, you wouldn't see anything unusual here. Then she added, oh yeah. Speaking of abyss-related stuff, I'm guessing it was the boss's wallet that you found, right? That's probably how she tracked you down. Owoshu blinked. Wait. Don't tell me that wallet was a special item too? Of course it was. It's what we call an abyssal artifact. Chisato grinned as she nodded. I call that one the lucky wallet. It always gets lost, but once found, something good is guaranteed to happen to you. The boss actually got her best weapon that way. She found it. Right in front of me, too. So that wallet was that powerful? Damn it, I let her buy me off with just 200,000 yen? At that moment, Owoshu finally grasped just how dangerous Kurokitakabana really was. That woman. She set him up with bait. Alright, we're done picking clothes. Let's head out, Chisato said as she gave him a light push toward the exit. Wait, that's it? I don't need to try the clothes on? Owoshu asked, confused. No need, no need. My eyes are sharper than any machine, you know. I already figured out your measurements at a glance. That suit will fit you perfectly. She paused, then quickly added with a cough, ahem, just kidding. Anyway, let's go to the armory now and get you your weapon. She mimed a pistol with her hand. It'll be your first time touching one of these, right? Owoshu didn't reply. Just held on to the suit and let her guide him out of the storage room. They soon arrived at a secure-looking door with a mechanical lock. Since you'll be using firearms going forward, Mika-san will snap your photo later and send it to the police department to register your gun license and officer credentials. Oh right, are you right-handed or left-handed? Right-handed. With that, Chisato expertly opened the door to the armory. Click. The motion sensor lights flickered on. Even though Owoshu had mentally prepared himself, the sight still shocked him. Inside the armory were rows upon rows of weapons, handguns, submachine guns, sniper rifles, and even single-man rocket launchers. It was a full-blown arsenal. He even spotted a drone fitted with a missile interface. Aside from lacking tanks and helicopters, this place had everything. Seriously, was this SDS or some American military black ops team? You sure you're not working for US instead of the Japan? Hands on hips, Chisato stepped into the armory with a grin. Since you're a newbie, and a wind warlock at that, I recommend you just carry a pistol. Something for deterrence, especially when dealing with civilians. Anything beyond a handgun is risky for someone new. You might end up hurting yourself or someone else. Oh, but you should carry a few grenades. I heard that wind warlocks in China are famous for pairing grenades with their powers. They call it technical bombing. Owoshu silently watched as Chisato walked over to a counter, pulled out a pistol, and handed it to him. This is a SIG P226. Holds 15 rounds, muzzle velocity of 350 meters per second, effective range of about 100 meters. It's one of the most beginner-friendly guns out there. Go ahead, see how it feels. Owoshu reached out and took the weapon, testing its grip. It felt decent. Though, as a total novice, any gun probably would have felt decent to him. Still, compared to his wind powers, the muzzle velocity alone was staggering. Bullets moved faster than sound. When he killed that mutated rat earlier, he could clearly see the path of his wind. It likely hadn't even broken the sound barrier. So, was his psychic power too weak? Or was modern tech just that strong? Like it? Chisato asked, watching him examine the gun with a smile. Feels pretty good, Owoshu nodded. Clapping her hands together with a satisfied look, Chisato beamed. Then, in that case, would you mind if I take you to the shooting range right now? Owoshu smiled in return. I'd love to. Chapter 22, Mr. Mika and his rebellious daughter. 20 meters beneath the Café Lyco, deep underground, was the shooting range. Owoshu put on the safety goggles Chisato Nishikigi handed him. She said it was to prevent spent casings from hitting his eyes. After the goggles came earmuffs. Once geared up, he saw Chisato tapping a button on a nearby console, which raised a target at a 1 meter distance. Beginners always start from 1 meter, she declared with confidence, not giving Owoshu a chance to protest. Alright, stand at the shooting line. Lesson begins now. Chest up, ABS in. Don't grip the gun too tightly. Relax, relax. You're way too tense. Standing behind him, Chisato occasionally tapped his shoulders and arms, helping him adjust his posture. Once she seemed satisfied with his stance, she gave the green light. Alright, try firing. Keep your current posture, and don't forget to manage the muzzle rise after the shot. Bang. The moment she finished speaking, the SIG P226's muzzle kicked upward slightly. A clean hole appeared dead center in the humanoid target 1 meter away. Luoshu felt a faint numbness travel up his hand but quickly adapted. Not bad at all, Chisato clapped in delight. Bullseye at 1 meter. Pretty decent for a first-timer. No, come on, at just 1 meter, isn't that? Luoshu doubted whether she was just being encouraging, but he had no proof. Wanna try 5 meters next? Sure, why not? His first success seemed to give him a burst of confidence, so Luoshu accepted her challenge and stepped up for the 5-meter target. Once again, he adjusted his form, raised the pistol, and fired using sheer instinct. Bang! Another perfect bullseye on the 5-meter target. Huh? Chisato blinked in surprise, gave Luoshu a sidelong glance, then broke into applause. Whoa! Another bullseye. Excellent. Keep that up. A few more shots. Luoshu steadied his slightly shaken arms from the recoil, held the gun with both hands, and resumed firing. Bang. 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 3 more consecutive shots. All right, on the mark. Seeing this, Chisato finally realized something was off. Wait a second. Try a 10-meter target. She quickly tapped the console, raising a 10-meter target. With 10 rounds still loaded, Luoshu calmly fired 3 more shots. Bang. 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 Chisato blinked repeatedly. The 10-meter target had what looked like only one hole, as if the bullets had all gone through the same spot. She fell silent for a moment, then switched to a moving 50-meter target. Luoshu didn't hesitate. He raised the gun and fired again. Bang. Another bullseye. Chisato's jaw fell slightly before she sighed in exasperation. I finally understand how my instructor must have felt back then. Not going to continue? Luoshu turned from the shooting line and asked her. No need. For a handgun, hitting a 50-meter target is already top tier. Anything beyond that isn't really practical. Sure, the effective range might be listed as 100 meters, but those long-range precision shots aren't exactly relevant in real encounters. She grumbled under her breath, and if we keep going, Mika really won't have anything left to teach. Damn, am I gonna get smacked for this? Still muttering, Chisato grabbed a nearby shoulder holster and tossed it to Luoshu. This one's made for concealed carry under a suit. Don't worry too much about accidental discharge. The P226 is double action, so the chances of that happening in daily life are slim. Next, she threw over a rectangular box. This one has 2 spare mags. 30 rounds total. Always keep them on you, just in case. If you use them up, just come back here. We've got plenty more. Alright, let's head back up. Seriously, not even a sliver of teacher's satisfaction left for me today. Hands behind her head and lips pouting in mock displeasure, Chisato stomped off. Luoshu could only shrug, quietly marveling at how much his instincts seemed to help with shooting. He followed her upstairs. Back in the cafe above, Luoshu was greeted by Chisato's voice complaining loudly before he even stepped inside. What? Take Hina and the others will be back later? Seriously? How long does grocery shopping take? I wanted to introduce them to our newbie. There was a problem with the car. I've already sent someone to fix it. But more importantly, what took you so long down there? Mika, seated behind the counter reading a newspaper, glanced up at her with mild disinterest. Just a bit of shooting practice, Chisato muttered, half annoyed, half boasting. Ugh, it's frustrating. This kid's way more talented than me. First try, and he's already hitting 50-meter targets. Let's not exaggerate our praise, Mika replied blandly. You were the same back then. You started at 50 meters too. Still, as he said that, he looked at Luoshu with visible surprise. So, he's the same way, huh? Looks like we've got another prodigy on our hands. Then Mika furrowed his brows and turned to Chisato. Wait a second. Aren't firearms training my job as the instructor? Eh? Was it? Chisato turned her head with a blank look. I don't remember. Mika's fingers crumpled the newspaper in his hands, his face twitching with irritation. You brat. You stole the joy of teaching a genius from me. You have no idea how rare it is to find someone this easy to teach. Hey, the boss told me to train the newbie, okay? If you've got a problem, go take it up with her, you wretched girl. The older you get, the less you listen. Mika glared at Chisato with a deep scowl, then huffed and reached under the counter, pulling out what looked like an iPhone. He handed it to Luoshu. I was going to give this to you during gun training, but I guess this'll have to do. It's a special department-issued phone with everyone's contact info preloaded. Thanks, manager, Luoshu said, taking the phone. But Mika let out a long, melancholic sigh, as if recalling a dark chapter of his life. Just don't yell at me in the middle of the night and call me a gay, alright? What? Luoshu blinked in confusion, looking at the broad-shouldered man in front of him. This guy? A guy? Wait. Why would I even say something like that? No way. As if sensing his thoughts, Mika said casually, though Chisato doesn't really admit it, she's technically my adopted daughter. So, you ever wonder why I didn't have biological kids and adopted instead? Owoshu gave a deep bow. Pardon me. Can I choose to work somewhere else instead? No. I'm just being upfront about my orientation so there's trust between team members. Not so you can shame me for it. Geez, I'm into blondes, okay? Mika grumbled, then pulled a form from under the counter. Write your bank account details here. We'll advance your first month's pay right away. He paused to add, you've got tomorrow off to handle your personal stuff. If you don't have a safe place to stay, we've got a secure house for you. You'll officially start cafe duty the day after tomorrow. Mizuki will show you the ropes. But keep in mind, the real training will come from the division chief. We're not equipped to train warlocks here. Oh, and give me your school's name too. I'll have someone notify them, so your shifts don't clash with class. You're surprisingly thorough. Owoshu took the pen and filled out the details, then handed the sheet back. Mika glanced at the paper, raising an eyebrow. Oh, Toyosaki? That's a pretty elite private school nearby. Is the tuitions deep? Not really. Owoshu replied awkwardly. He'd gotten in on merit, so his fees were low. He wasn't sure what the others paid. Perfect timing then. The chief Takadana just used her military contacts to get you clearance to attend. Humphrey. Mika shot Chisato a look. You'd better watch out. I might just toss you back into school too. Eh? Chisato, who had been quietly watching the drama, now shouted in shock. Why me? Mika rolled his eyes. Weren't you the one whining about wanting to go to school? Now that Owoshu's joining, you can go too. Wouldn't that be nice? No. Studying is. And besides, we can't hire regular staff for the cafe, right? If I leave, Mizuki and Takina will be overwhelmed. Bonk. Mika smacked her on the head with his newspaper. Objection overruled. And Takina's going with you. The cafe will be fine with me and Mizuki. No more excuses, got it? I don't even know what you're talking about. Chisato cried, clutching her head, looking genuinely wronged. Idiot. That's what happens when you don't study. Mika turned to Owoshu. You might have to look after this kid once in a while. I don't mind. Owoshu ignored Chisato's silent pleas for help. Even though he had a bad feeling about it, he just shrugged and said, but I'm charging extra if tutoring's involved. I'll make it worth your while, Mika replied without hesitation. Chisato threw her head back and groaned. This is so unfair. Owoshu left Lyko Cafe under Mika's cheerful shoulder pat and Chisato's soul-crushed stare. Once he stepped out of the alley and onto the main street, he glanced at the dark, starless sky, pulled out his phone, and looked at the time, 1932. He shook his head. Yep. Definitely going to be late for work. Bet the manager's already pissed. TCH, guess I'll be apologizing tonight. Chapter 23, An Evening Between Two People. Toshima Ward, Sawamura Residence. Atop a sloping hill stood a Western-style mansion that instantly gave away the wealth of its owners. It's different now. Sawamura Ariri stood in front of a full-length mirror, still dressed in her Toyosaki Academy uniform. On the surface, nothing had changed. Same outfit, same hairstyle. But only she knew just how different things really were. She raised her right hand in front of the mirror, gazing at the two oval contact lenses resting on the pads of her index fingers. Ever since elementary school, she had relied on her desk lamp late into the night to draw, and as a result, she'd worn glasses from a young age. Her prescription had long since passed 400. And yet now, when she looked at the blonde twin-tailed girl reflected in the mirror, she felt like she had once again returned to the crystal-clear vision of her childhood. Has my prescription completely disappeared? As she muttered to herself, she turned to look out the window. About 10 meters from her room stood a cherry blossom tree. It was still spring, and a few petals lingered on its branches. From this distance, she could not only make out the soft color gradients of each petal but also easily count how many there were. Even riding my bike home just now, I hit 40 kph and barely felt tired. Her words to the mirror were filled with genuine amazement. This really is different. Just an ordinary school day. Until she unexpectedly received a love letter. But when she went to reject it, she ended up caught in a bizarre prank pulled by two upperclassmen, and before she could fully process what was happening, she'd been forcibly recruited into some secret organization as a founding member. So much had changed in a single day that even someone as deeply immersed in otaku culture as Ariri was left in a daze. And only now did she truly feel, I'm not the same as I was before. But there's still the most important thing. This ability. Ariri stared at herself in the mirror and took a deep breath. Slowly, her reflection began to change. Long, dark purple hair with a slight black sheen, seductive violet eyes full of mystery, a taller frame, a curvier figure. A woman with the elegance of a noble lady appeared in the mirror. Sawamura Sayuri. Sawamura Spencer Ariri's birth mother, and the woman she was most familiar with in the world. According to the ability breakdown shared in that forum thread by Senpai Luoshu, this ability, called Shapeshift, should be practiced starting with people you know well. Gradually ramp up the difficulty to help the mind adjust. Ariri glanced at her reflection again, then suddenly covered her cheeks, fuming with frustration. Damn that 30-something old hag. Not only is she taller than me, her body's better too. And even her skin. I have to optimize it with the transformation just to match hers. You're nearly 40, woman. As Ariri vented her dissatisfaction, a sudden knock came at the door. Before she could react, the door creaked open. Sawamura Sayuri poked her head in with a bright smile, holding up a CD case. Ariri, I bought the latest Grand Blue Blu-ray. Want to watch it together after dinner? Oh my. Sayuri blinked in surprise as she spotted another version of herself standing inside the room. She froze for a moment, then, before Ariri could scream, leaned in with a teasing glint in her eye. Ariri, that's naughty of you. Pretending to be mommy like this. What if daddy got confused, huh? That'd be bad, wouldn't it? Ariri felt her brain explode. She clutched her head and shrieked, why didn't you knock before coming in? I did knock. Sayuri replied cheerfully. Her eyes lingered for a second on the silver bracelet on Ariri's wrist, then she continued, by the way, the school won't allow just one parent at the conference, you know. I didn't transform into you for the parent-teacher meeting. Furious, Ariri stomped her feet, then rushed forward and pushed Sayuri out of the room. Get out. Out. Sayuri was shoved out helplessly, and the door slammed shut behind her with a bang. Isn't her rebellious face supposed to be over already? Sayuri muttered with a smile as she stood outside the room. Still, come to think of it, when did that girl get so good at makeup? And that bracelet? Was it a gift? Did a friend give it to her? Not long after starting high school, and already getting gifts? My, that's quite something. Could it be? Ariri is finally growing up? Oh, I can't wait. Back in the room, Ariri leaned against the door, her heart still racing. That scared the life out of me. Thank God I was using mom's appearance. If it had been Utaha Kasumijoka or someone else. Just imagining Sayuri barging in while she was transformed into someone like Kasumijoka made her break out in a cold sweat. She could already see herself being interrogated for every last secret under the sun. That was way too terrifying. From now on, I'm only doing this stuff in the astronomy club room, she vowed. Luoshu's foresight had never seemed more brilliant. People like them really needed a secure space of their own. Never again at home, Ariri muttered with lingering dread. Narama Ward, Kasumijoka Utaha's apartment. Kasumijoka Utaha was lying on her couch, her head resting against the armrest while her eyes were fixed on her phone. On the screen was a line chat. At the top of the screen was the name Luoshu, followed by a heart emoji. The most recent message was from earlier that day, sent right after class ended. Luoshu, after class, came to the club room. It's about time Ariri found out a few things. Smile, read, Utaha, going to intimidate the newbie? You really are a wicked main god. Read, Utaha, I'll lock the door when the time comes. Read, Luoshu, on behalf of Ariri-chan, allow me to say, wow, thanks so much. Read, flipping through the messages and thinking about the strange sense of unease she felt while walking past that alley on the way home, Kasumijoka let out a deep sigh. She set her phone down beside her and murmured, as expected, that wooden-headed god doesn't understand a girl's need for security. Next time, maybe I should ask if he can relocate the clubhouse safe house entrance to somewhere near my place. I wonder if that's even possible. She mumbled to herself as her eyelids grew heavier. Eventually, still holding her phone, her breathing slowed and evened out. And so, the young woman on the couch slowly drifted into sleep. Chapter 24, Luoshu's Everyday Affairs near Kabukuro Station in Narama Ward, inside a newly renovated bookstore. Thank you very much for everything. With a polite 30-degree bow, Luoshu bid farewell to the store manager and officially resigned from his part-time job at the bookstore. Once he stepped out onto the street, he tugged at his collar and exhaled deeply. Phew. Good thing the manager was understanding. If she'd been short-tempered, I'd have definitely gotten an earful for quitting on such short notice. In Japan, quitting a job wasn't something you did lightly. You were supposed to give formal notice, usually a week in advance, because schedules were planned accordingly. If you bailed without notice, it meant someone else had to take on your shift last minute. And Luoshu, who was due to start working at Laiko in just 2 days, definitely didn't have time to give advance warning. which was why he was so grateful to the manager. After all, she would be the one covering his remaining shifts. She didn't complain, didn't scold him harshly, and now Luo felt genuinely guilty for the trouble. These past few days really have been a roller coaster. Nothing has gone according to plan. But whatever, I should focus on more immediate things. Like dinner. It's already almost 8:30. Shaking his head, Luo looked around and walked into a ramen shop he frequented. At the ordering machine, he quickly inserted a 1,000 yen bill, ordered a large bowl of tonkatsu ramen for 950 yen, collected his change and the meal ticket, and took a seat at the counter. He handed his ticket to the ramen chef, accepted a towel to wipe his hands, and sat quietly to wait for his food. Since the bookstore where he worked was nearby, this ramen shop had become a regular stop. The chef here used fresh ingredients from his own family's shop, and Luo had even seen the owner boiling pork bones out back when he was standing duty at the bookstore. It was the kind of place you could eat with peace of mind. Of course, if he recalled correctly, the previous Luo also liked this place for another reason. The massively popular idol, Ai Hoshino, was rumored to disguise herself and visit with her manager from time to time. The chance of a celebrity encounter had certainly helped explain the past Luo's frequent visits. But for this Luo, the ramen shop had become more of a soundproof chamber. A place to reset his mood and think seriously. While the two Luo's only differed by the awakening of past life memories, those memories brought with them different attitudes, a natural consequence of different experience. The bookstore's public use bike is still at Utaha Kazumidjoka's place. I'll have to pick it up before school tomorrow. And although the manager said she'd still pay me for the last few days of work, I feel kind of bad about it since she had to cover all my shifts. When I get the money, I should probably buy her something nice and stop by to say thanks properly. Thanks to Miko having deposited 500,000 yen into his account as an advance, Luo wasn't particularly worried about finances. He could definitely afford to buy a decent gift. Speaking of which, the apartment Mika mentioned. My parents had left a deposit with the rental agency that's valid for another year. If I cancel the lease early, those smiling real estate sharks are not going to let me off easy. Should I ask Mika to help with some backdoor channels? Forget it. Even if I'm only a half-baked deity, I still have some pride. Besides, there's a part of me that can't bring myself to just abandon that apartment. After thinking it through, Luo decided not to move out this year. The place he was renting now was high-end and carried emotional significance. It was the first home his late parents had rented after coming to Japan. Sentimental value aside, it felt like the last tangible connection to them. Even though, to the system, this reincarnation technically meant a total reboot. DNA and all. Those two had still raised him. To sever that last connection felt wrong. Maybe I should just buy the place someday. Even if I don't stay there forever, it'd be nice to have something left to remember them by. As for whether the landlord would actually sell, or if he'd even have the funds to buy a 120 square meter luxury apartment near Ikebukuro within the next year, Luo had a rough idea. What was the price again? 52 million yen, around 3.12 million in Chinese yuan. If he didn't spend a single cent, he could afford it in 7.5 years. Wait, 7.5 years? Guess he'd need to extend the lease until he could buy it. Or pull off one big payday to fast-track the whole thing. TCH. I'll ask Mika the day after tomorrow if there's any high-paying gigs. Being a government agent should come with some juicy side missions, right? As he thought this, he remembered something Miko had said earlier. About Chisato Nishikigi enrolling at Toyosaki Academy. Hold on, Chisato's transferring to Toyosaki too? I really need to give Utaha and area a heads up. Wouldn't want to wake up one morning to an Asahi headline reading SDS agent Chisato Nishikigi exposes cult activity at Toyosaki. Now that would be something. The image of himself in handcuffs making the evening news flashed through his mind, and Luo couldn't help but laugh bitterly. He'd thought the school was the perfect front. Safe, ordinary, under the radar. And then a couple of agents showed up. Worst part? He was the one who brought them in. Goddamn. Is this what they mean by you're the one who let the enemy in? The irony of his situation made him chuckle to himself. But in all seriousness, back when Mika asked, there hadn't been a solid reason to turn her down. Not without blowing the whole operation. Anyway, aside from these daily headaches, Luo opened his system interface and glanced at the latest notifications. Joined official organization, SDS. Reward, 3,000 points. Monthly point income increased to 1,000 points. Alright, 3,000 points isn't bad. But the monthly bonus jumped by 600. Is that because my personal influence level increased? Answer, correct. Host's influence has risen due to joining the SDS, resulting in a permanent increase in monthly point income. As he read that, The chef passed over a steaming bowl of tonkatsu ramen. Luoshu accepted it and continued thinking while slurping noodles. So basically, it's not just recruiting future heroines that boosts monthly point income. If I get stronger myself or change my status significantly, that also boosts it? Answer: correct. Looking at the system's response, Luoshu chuckled. So, you're basically telling me to go stir things up, make some headlines, and farm points off the chaos, huh? Still, stirring up trouble was one thing. Wrapping it up cleanly and keeping his name out of it was another. He had to think carefully about how to walk that tightrope. That reckless mindset of abusing the system just to create drama and farm points? He crushed that idea the moment it surfaced. Even something as small as Garokitokabana's wallet could end up dragging him into a pit. Who knew how many abyssal artifacts in this world could lock onto him? He had zero interest in waking up one day wearing striped prison clothes because he got too cocky. I became a god behind bars or my spiritual enlightenment in a modern-day jail cell? No thanks. Finishing his meal and wiping his mouth, Luoshu grabbed his bag and headed toward the subway. His apartment was about a 5 to 6 minute walk from work. A luxury building near a major road, usually rented by business executives or elite professionals. In Japan, it was common knowledge, the ultra-rich lived in villas, the wealthy in luxury apartments, and the rest in standalone homes. Thanks to his parents' former status as high-ranking professionals, Luoshu got to live in one of the upscale ones. Truth was, the previous Luoshu had planned to move out during university. He couldn't afford the rent otherwise. Without his parents' support, he wouldn't have lasted long. The monthly rent alone was 200,000 yen, plus another 50,000 yen in maintenance and management fees. And that 200,000 yen? It would have eaten up all the money wired from his hometown in a single shot. But now, with SDS covering 500,000 yen in monthly salary, plus a 90% housing subsidy mentioned in the contract, the numbers looked a lot better. That meant 200,000 yen in rent dropped to just 20,000, and with the 50,000 yen maintenance fee, the total came to 70,000. Now that was a deal. Grinning at the sweet taste of government benefits, Luoshu returned to his apartment and pressed his finger to the biometric glass door. Beep. The glass door slid open. Just as he was about to step inside, someone suddenly grabbed his right hand. A soft voice whispered in his ear, loud and cautious. Are you Luoshu-kun? Please, I need you to not push me away right now. That voice. It sounded familiar. Wait, wasn't this his next-door neighbor? Myra Tsubakahara? Chapter 25, Myra Tsubakahara. The moment his hand was grabbed, Luoshu instinctively focused his gaze on the square-shaped school bag in his right hand. Inside were the suit uniform and SIG P226 handgun he'd previously received from Chisato Nishikigi. At the same time, his thoughts sharpened, preparing to manipulate the wind element at a moment's notice. Just in case. But all those defenses melted away the instant he heard that familiar voice. Myra Tsubakahara-san? Luoshu asked cautiously, slightly turning his head to glance at the woman holding his wrist. She wore light, unobtrusive makeup that highlighted her gentle and refined features. Her eyes were a striking shade of bright ocean blue. She stood relatively tall. Likely over 165 centimeters. And with her heels on, her head could easily rest against Luoshu's shoulder. Which was exactly how she was standing now, arm linked with his, her head gently leaning against his shoulder. Her orange blonde hair, cascading over the khaki-colored blazer she wore, brushed softly against his arm due to the closeness. A faint, refreshing fragrance. Possibly her shampoo. Lingered in the air around them with every breath he took. Myra Tsubakahara. Resident of Unit 302. Right next door to Luoshu's apartment. According to what Luoshu had once heard from his parents, she was around 26 or 27 years old and ran a family-owned jewelry business. A true single aristocrat. The kind of stunning woman Luoshu's father would have looked at 1 second too long, only to get teased relentlessly by his mother afterward. Because she lived next door and Japanese custom dictated new tenants bring gifts to greet their neighbors, Luoshu had met Myra a few times before. They weren't exactly close, but she wasn't a stranger either. Notice, host is currently engaging with a heroine. Heroine? Luoshu was momentarily stunned. He hadn't expected it at all. He had no idea which anime or storyline Myra might belong to. But this clearly wasn't the time to calmly think it through. Just then, Myra, still clinging to his arm, spoke in a hushed voice, I'm being followed. Please, help me. While the statement might have shocked someone else, Luoshu wasn't particularly surprised. After all, this was Japan. Land of the unpredictable plotline. A stalker tailing a beautiful woman? That was almost normal. And a heroine who practically walked into his arms? Luoshu wasn't about to turn that down. What? Say no to points? I understand. Just act natural now. Luoshu turned toward her with a gentle smile, playing the role of a boyfriend caught off guard by a sudden embrace. He even leaned in, whispering near her ear as if teasing her affectionately. Then, sliding his arm around her shoulders, he led her toward the apartment building's first-floor lobby. She stiffened slightly at his touch, but he acted like it was second nature. "No security in this building, right?" he asked in a low voice as they approached the elevator. "There's not," Myra whispered back, her tone slightly resigned. "But there's a police box about 100 meters away, and patrol units operate 24/7 nearby." Still, she added, frustration creeping in stalking cases like this, all they do is issue a verbal warning. "That's about it." Luoshu nodded knowingly. Unless the stalker outright confessed or got caught placing a tracking device or committing a clear act of harassment, the law couldn't do much. Which meant, "We'll have to take care of this outside the system, then," he muttered. "When we get in the elevator, look out the glass and tell me who's following you. Let's at least confirm who it is." "Okay," she agreed softly. Together, they arrived at the elevator. Myra pressed the button, and with a ding, the doors opened immediately. Luoshu nodded slightly and led her inside, then turned around with her. As the doors remained open for a few seconds, Myra casually glanced through the glass wall toward the street beyond the lobby, scanning quickly. "There," she whispered urgently, just before he hit the button. At the entrance, by the curb. Carrying a briefcase. Black suit. Blue striped tie. Wearing a black mask. Hearing that, Luoshu pressed the button for the fourth floor while casually raising his eyes to look outside. And just as she described, there was a man. Business attire, briefcase in hand, short black hair, black mask, blue striped tie. A classic office worker look. But when their eyes met for just a split second, the man immediately turned his head, feigning disinterest, and walked past the lobby like nothing had happened. As the elevator doors finally shut, Myra exhaled slowly in relief. "Are you sure it's him?" Luoshu asked. "I used my compact mirror while pretending to fix my makeup on the train," she explained. "He's been tailing me since I got off." That was an 8-minute walk from the station. If he had followed her that whole way, then yeah. He was a stalker all right. "I'm really sorry for dragging you into this, Elwo-kun," Myra said, looking apologetic. "It's not a big deal," Luoshu replied with a shake of his head. But then he frowned slightly. "Still, there's one thing I want to clarify." "Huh?" Myra blinked, a little confused, as he continued, "You don't actually think he's going to stop just because he saw you with me, right?" The color instantly drained from Myra's face. If the guy had followed her all the way from the station and now knew where she lived, chances were he wasn't going to back off. If anything, his obsession might escalate. Of course, it didn't help that Myra had led him right back to her residence, either. Luoshu glanced at her briefly. Just then. Ding. The elevator stopped. "Eh? Why did you press the fourth floor?" she asked, pointing at the elevator display in confusion. Both she and Luoshu lived on the third floor. Taking her hand gently, Luoshu simply said, "Come with me." He led her out of the elevator and walked straight to the stairwell. Peering down through the railing, he kept his eyes sharp and alert. "Wait, what are you doing?" Myra whispered, clearly puzzled by his actions. But Luoshu had already spotted something, a flash of a black-suited shoulder moving in the hallway below. "He came inside," Luoshu stated calmly. Myra went pale on the spot. Chapter 26, Luoshu's response. "How can that be?" "There's a security lock at the entrance," Myra Tsubakahara murmured, covering her mouth with one hand. Her voice was low and filled with panic. In that moment, she finally understood why Luoshu had pressed the elevator button for the fourth floor. The elevator floor display in the lobby showed which floor it had stopped on. Clearly, the stalker had seen it halt at the fourth floor and assumed that was their destination. So he had followed them up via the stairs. Luoshu's deliberate misdirection had bought them a sliver of time and space to maneuver. "Let's go. We're heading up to the fifth floor," Luoshu said quietly. At the same time, he manipulated the wind element around the staircase below to disperse sound. An invisible barrier to prevent their movements from being heard. "I'm wearing heels," Myra whispered urgently, finally regaining some composure. Running in heels would make a racket. Enough to alert the man just one floor below. "Hold on to me," Luoshu said simply. There was no time to explain the soundproofing spell, and so, without further ado, he wrapped an arm around Myra's waist. She instinctively adjusted her position, and in one swift motion, he lifted her into a princess carry. Thanks to the physical enhancements granted by his awakened abilities, Luoshu ascended the stairs to the fifth floor in silence and with ease, holding Myra in his arms. Once they reached the hallway, he stopped in front of apartment 501. "Is there an empty unit on this floor?" he asked. Still clutching his neck and resting her cheek on his shoulder, Myra quickly replied, Unit 503 isn't rented out yet. I have the keys in my bag. Without hesitation, Owoshu stepped in front of 503 and reached into her bag. He found a large bunch of keys. Every unit in the building had a corresponding one. He blinked and glanced at Myra. She averted her eyes a little guiltily and muttered, I own the entire building. I just let the agency handle the rentals. Wait. So when I paid 5 months rent up front, totaling 100,000 yen as a thank you fee, it all went to her? Suppressing the urge to sigh, Owoshu quickly located the key to 503, opened a door, and stepped inside with Myra. He locked the door behind them. As he crossed to the balcony, he opened his school bag while explaining his next move. You stay here. I'll go down through the emergency fire exit on the balcony and deal with this guy. He needed to figure out what this man was up to. Given that his own face had already been seen, retaliation was a very real concern. Wait, that's too dangerous. Myra began, but her voice trailed off as she saw Owoshu pull out a sleek black handgun from his bag, followed by an extra magazine which he slipped into his pocket with practiced ease. She stared, speechless. Owoshu paused at the balcony door, looked back at her, and asked, What danger? Myra hesitated, then lowered her voice. Please don't kill anyone. But if it really comes to that, I'll help you clean it up. That earnest response made Owoshu want to laugh, but he simply quipped, I didn't bring my badge today. Not that it mattered. The real reason he didn't have it was that Mika was still processing the documents for it. Oh. I see. Myra blinked in sudden understanding, visibly relaxing. Though she was still unsure when her neighbor's kid became a full-on police officer, she chose to believe him. Given the current circumstances, she had little choice. Owoshu reached the balcony and pulled open the emergency fire escape hatch in the floor. He extended the collapsible ladder hanging from it. Japanese apartment buildings were thoughtful like that. Each balcony came equipped with an emergency ladder to the floor below. Of course, because of potential break-ins from neighbors above, the balcony windows were usually kept locked. Gripping the handle of his bag with his teeth, Owoshu climbed swiftly down the ladder and entered Unit 403's balcony. He tugged at the glass door. It was, unsurprisingly, locked. Phew. He exhaled and moved on without hesitation, opening the next emergency hatch and ascending to 303. This time, he didn't even try the door. He simply smashed the glass. Why the confidence? Because 303 was his own apartment. Ignoring the empty cup noodles on the glass table, Owoshu placed his bag down and took out the suit uniform, quickly changing clothes. According to Chisato Nishikigi, this outfit's defensive capability was better than the latest bulletproof vests and could even resist a degree of supernatural attacks. System, link my apartment's study room to the astronomy club's pocket dimension. Set the trigger as turning the doorknob 3 times, he instructed mentally. This was his contingency plan in case of emergency. Something about the stalker had felt off. Like a faint trace of danger lingering in the air. Notice, 100 points deducted, remaining points, 14,983, relieved at the system's confirmation. Owoshu skipped the tie, grabbed his handgun, and headed out the door. He climbed the stairs swiftly and silently to the 4th floor. At the stairwell corner, he stopped, cautiously peering into the corridor. Just as expected, the man in the black mask was now knocking on the door to Unit 405, then moving toward the far end. Unit 406. Owoshu mentally prepared 5 points for emergency teleportation back to the pocket dimension and stepped into the hallway. He raised his gun. Freeze. Police. The masked man froze mid-stride. Turn around. Let me see your face. Owoshu aimed at center, never the head. Too risky. He pictured the man as a target on a shooting range, keeping steady. The man slowly raised both hands and turned his head. When he saw Owoshu dressed differently, he visibly hesitated. Hands on your head. Get down. Now. The man said nothing. I repeat. Hands on your head, and squat down. Owoshu barked, brows furrowed. Still no response. Then, suddenly, the man turned and bolted forward. Owoshu's instincts screamed danger. The unease that had gnawed at him before surged to the surface. Without a second thought, he pulled the trigger. Bang. The bullet struck the man's left leg. Blood splattered, and he let out a muffled groan. Staggering, he used his right foot to push off hard. And leapt over the balcony railing. Caught off guard, Owoshu stared in shock, then lunged forward to look over the edge. But just as he reached the railing, every alarm in his body went off. His instincts flared like wildfire. In his mind's eye, he saw a monstrous claw rising from below. Shit. He leapt back on reflex, landing half a meter away, stumbling slightly but catching his balance. A split second later, a long, slender claw. Like that of a beast. slashed upward from below, sharp as blades, slicing through the air in a motion like a drawn sword, a gleaming arc of death. The masked man had been clinging to the balcony edge all along, waiting for Luoshu to approach so he could rip his throat open. You son of a... Still rattled by the brush with death, Luoshu fired again without hesitation. Bang. Bang. Blood exploded from the man's chest, right over the heart. He looked stunned, eyes wide as he lost his grip and plummeted. Luoshu stepped to the railing and leaned over. Down below, the man had crashed onto the garage pavement beside the building, his body sprawled in a growing pool of blood. He twitched unnaturally, his wide eyes frozen in a dead stare. Locked on Luoshu above. His lips twitched at the grim sight. He took a few deep breaths to steady himself. Screams from the street below rang out, clearly triggered by the gunshots and the body hitting the pavement. Luoshu glanced toward the road and saw a patrol officer frozen stiff, still holding onto his bicycle, staring up at him in complete shock. Without a word, Luoshu pulled out his specially issued contact phone and dialed Mika's number. Chapter 27. It's not even late night yet, is it? The small interrogation room, lit by stark white fluorescent lights, felt even colder than it looked. Name: Luoshu. Age: 18. Where are you from? Fujian, China. Where'd you get the gun? My superior gave it to me. Which superior? Which branch of the Fukuzai syndicate? Or are you with a hangman? Officer, don't slander me like that. I'm a legal international student. Luoshu looked at the female inspector across the table with a speechless expression. She had short inward curled hair and a sharp gaze. If the tall, skinny male officer from earlier hadn't called her name wrong, this was Nueko Sato. Great. Am I about to meet Conan now? Is this going to turn into a murder case and I'm the suspect? Luoshu internally ranted. Before he could continue mentally mocking the situation, Nueko Sato slammed the table with a loud bang, her eyes blazing. A legal student, huh? And legal students go around shooting people in broad daylight. Luoshu felt like he'd been cursed by Eri. Who the hell knew that stalker guy's hands would revert to normal after death? That beastly claw he'd used to try and kill him had vanished, leaving Luoshu to explain to the police with absolutely nothing to show for it. And Mika? That damn guy told him to wait in place for backup. They were on their way to extract him. Instead of help, what showed up was Inspector Magure and his legendary 0% case-solving squad. This really was some Eri-level bullshit. Seeing Luoshu remain calm even in custody, Sato frowned and tried to scare him further. Listen carefully. We've already gathered enough evidence to convict you. If you don't want to spend the next 20 years behind bars, you'd better start talking. Ma'am, what exactly do you want me to confess? Luoshu replied, baffled. I've been cooperating with you from the start. Who's your superior? Sato pushed on, sensing he might actually talk. Luoshu paused, then answered honestly, Captain Takabana Erika, head of the 7th Division's SDS department at the Metropolitan Police. I work under her. Bang. Water splashed from the cup on the table as Sato slammed it down again. You think I'm stupid? The MPD doesn't even have a SDS department. Calm down, Sato. Calm down. The male officer next to her, Wataru Takagi, quickly raised his hands in surrender, trying to de-escalate before things got worse. Sato narrowed her eyes. Seems like you're not going to talk unless we put some pressure on. She gave Takagi a subtle glance. Her signal. If this didn't work and she needed to intimidate the suspect further, he was to step in and stop her. It was just a bluff tactic, after all. They couldn't actually beat a suspect. But maybe, if the kid got scared enough, he'd spill. Takagi instantly got the hint and prepared to play his role. But before either could act, a knock sounded on the door. Knock knock. It opened a second later, and Inspector Magure's round figure entered, wearing a grim expression. No need to interrogate further. Release him. Huh? But this guy. Sato blinked, confused, just about to protest. He's one of ours, Magure said wearily. From a special division. Our officers made a mistake. The man who got shot was a terrorist. Huh? Sato and Takagi both froze in place, completely dumbfounded. And then Takabana Erika herself strolled in behind Magure, cigarette dangling from her lips. She smirked when she saw Luoshu still cuffed to the regret chair. 2 hours, not even 2 damn hours apart, and you've already ended up in a precinct? And to top it off, arrested by our own people? You're really something, kid. Can we skip the sarcasm right now, Chief? Luoshu sighed, utterly exasperated. I didn't want any of this to happen either. He'd thought it was just a stalker, someone with clear hostility toward him. So, he'd drawn his weapon to take the guy down and had Mika call the police to do the rest. Who could have guessed the man was actually a warlock? You always manage to surprise me, Erika chuckled, then turned to Magure. Unlock him. Yes, Commissioner Takabana. Magyar straightened immediately, wiping the sweat from his brow, then shouted, Takagi, what are you doing? Unlock the cuffs. Right away. Takagi scrambled for the keys, fumbling with them as he looked pitifully at Sato. They'd both heard what Magyar just said. Commissioner. Just one rank below the highest position in the Tokyo Metropolitan Police. Only 38 of them in all of Japan. She was the second in command of the MPD, and unofficially the top dog in many special operations. And they just arrested one of her direct subordinates. This was career suicide level stuff. Once the handcuffs were off, Luoshi rolled his wrists, then turned to Sato and said with a grin, Ms. Sato, next time you're trying to scare someone, don't do it yourself. You're way too attractive to be threatening. What? Sato blinked, stunned, but Luoshi had already walked past her and joined Garuka. Garuka handed him a familiar ID badge and winked. Next time, don't forget your work ID, Inspector Luo. Magyar's mouth twitched as he looked at Luoshi's way too young face. He couldn't stop the wave of bitterness in his heart. The same rank. This kid and him. Same rank. How was that fair? But there was nothing he could do. After arresting Luoshi, he'd been chewed out by his superiors and their superiors for detaining an operative mid-mission. He still didn't even fully understand what was going on. And he got yelled at twice for it. So now, Magyar just wanted this bad luck magnet gone. Get him out before more damage was done. Damn it. I should have ignored Shinichi's call earlier. Every time I pick up, something explodes. It's like a curse. Under the awkward stares of the detectives, Luoshi reclaimed his confiscated belongings and left the precinct, following Garuka out to her sleek white sedan. As he buckled in, Garuka lit another cigarette and said, in a way, I can't tell if you're just unlucky. Or incredibly lucky. Luoshi wasn't surprised. He'd already updated her through Mika. That guy. What organization was he from? Golden Dawn, a subgroup called Demon Hunters. Specifically, their so-called Hound Unit. They're a pack of rogue operatives specializing in all things demonic. The guy you killed was a bestial-type warlock. Specialized in mimicking beasts. As she spoke, Garuka reached into her bag and pulled out a photo, handing it to Luoshi. He looked down to see a short-haired young man with a blank expression and utterly forgettable features. Nakamura Yuichi. One of Golden Dawn's hounds stationed in East Tokyo. He was tracking an object under direct orders from high-ranking members. Something important. All this is intel from our undercover assets. So that's the guy I killed? Luoshi frowned, comparing the photo to the corpse from earlier. He was tailing my neighbor because she has what he was looking for? Just a neighbor? Garuka asked with a teasing smile. Luoshi shot her a deadpan look. Don't get the wrong idea. It was a random encounter. I thought it was just a creep stalking her. How was I supposed to know it was a damn hound? Garuka didn't seem surprised. She chuckled again. I'm not judging. You are the guy who found my wallet, after all. Having a little romantic luck wouldn't be strange at all. Besides, she added with a mischievous glint, I met Miss Tsubakahara earlier. She's quite the beauty. No strange scent on her either. Maybe you'll be the first man to leave a scent on her. Luoshi's face twitched at the blatant implication and quickly steered the conversation elsewhere. Before you say more nonsense, how about explaining that wallet first? I heard you can only find it if your luck is exceptional. And you swindled me into giving you 200,000 yen in gratitude money for it. TCH. So Chisato told you? Garuka rolled her eyes, clearly expecting this. I respect that girl's ability to read people, but she's too blunt sometimes. It's annoying. Luoshi didn't push the topic further. Sensing that, Garuka also switched gears. Nakamura Yuichi was tracking a ruby inlaid ring, she said. The internal name for it is Heart of the Demon. Her tone turned grave. It's an abyssal relic that came from the true celestial astronomy. And according to reports from our agents, its ability appears to be very specific. It hypnotizes any woman who has seen the ruby. Luoshi's expression froze. It's not even late-night drama hour yet, is it? Chapter 28, the information provided by Takabana Garuka. You mean hypnosis as in that kind of hypnosis? Luoshi glanced uncertainly at Takabana Garuka, who sat beside him. Internally, though, he was intrigued. So there really was such a useful item. Yes, the literal kind of hypnosis. According to intel we received, quite a few glamorous female celebrities in Europe have already reported incidents. It seems the hypnosis wears off once the user dies, Garuka explained casually. Luoshi paused at her words, then gave a rather complicated look. So it is that kind of hypnosis. But from what you're saying, this thing was smuggled in from abroad? Exactly. Garuka nodded slightly, then elaborated. Even though the Demon Hunters are a subdivision of the Golden Dawn, they operate exactly as their name suggests. A band of hunters obsessed with tracking down demonic entities. They're sworn enemies of the demon warlocks from the true celestial astronomy. This time, a warlock from the true celestial astronomy attempted to smuggle the heart of the demon into Japan, only to be intercepted by a 7-star demon hunter who'd been tailing him. Before dying from his injuries, the warlock used the item to hypnotize a random woman passing by and entrusted her with the heart of the demon along with several other things. Owoshu frowned. So, the woman who was hypnotized. That's my neighbor? But Garika shook her head. No, it was actually one of the employees at the jewelry shop owned by your beautiful neighbor. After she received the heart of the demon, she sorted the items and passed them along, selling the ruby-encrusted ring to the store, where it eventually ended up in your good neighbor Miss Myra Tsubakahara's hands. As for Nakamura Yuuichi, the one you killed, he was the hound assigned by that 7-star demon hunter to retrieve the heart. A seasoned agent with 3 years of experience. If you hadn't scared him off with your police credentials, you wouldn't have taken him down so easily. At that, even Garika couldn't help but chuckle. After all, anyone from such an organization inevitably had blood on their hands. The kind of person who'd face at least a death sentence if arrested. These people were seasoned killers. And because of their pasts, they usually avoided drawing attention from law enforcement once inside a foreign country. Too bad for Nakamura Yuuichi. He'd run into Owoshu, someone who skipped all the formalities and just opened fire. What a humiliating way to die. Owoshu scoffed and let out a bitter laugh. So, this whole thing was a fluke? But how the hell did you even get all this intel? Don't tell me you've got someone undercover in their leadership? Garika gave a mysterious smile. Information doesn't always have to come from the mouths of the living, you know. You pulled it from Nakamura's corpse? No. His brain? Owoshu immediately understood. So SDS had someone that could do that? Or was it an abyssal artifact? And the heart of the demon is with Miss Tsubakahara now? He asked. Can't say for sure, Garika replied. We only know it passed through her hands. As for the ring's current whereabouts, even she doesn't know. She paused, then gave him a pointed look. Every mysterious object in this world. Or more precisely, every abyssal artifact that makes its way here from the other side. Carry side effects, some minor, some extremely dangerous. Take my wallet, for instance. The lucky wallet. Its downside. It likes to get lost. It actively chooses owners with better luck. The more powerful the artifact, the more potent. And more subtle. The downside. Which is why these things are often classified as extremely dangerous. Until they're properly studied and tested, it's best not to mess around with them. After giving him a brief crash course on abyssal artifacts, Garika continued, as for the heart of the demon, we've confirmed at least one of its negative traits. Any woman who comes into possession of it, unless they're under hypnosis, will inevitably forget it exists. Hey. Fitting, isn't it? Just like its twisted function, this artifact seems to resist being used by anyone other than hypnotized women. In fact, it hides itself so well that it almost feels sentient. Owoshu blinked in realization, then frowned as he looked through the windshield. So, what you're saying is, Myro Tsubakahara did hold the heart of the demon, but now she's forgotten all about it. That's why she's clueless. Exactly. Garika nodded, then started the car. As the engine hummed to life, she smiled and said in a teasing tone, So, you've got a mission now, boy. Retrieve the heart of the demon? Owoshu asked, puzzled. Then why don't you just detain her and search the place? Her father is a city councilman, Garika said as she calmly drove. Her uncle's a senior civil servant. Her mother's from an American consortium. Catch my drift? Got it. Owoshu nodded immediately. One of those people. You can't lay a finger on them. He sighed and chuckled, so you're sending me after the artifact instead. Aren't you worried I'll keep it for myself? You can keep it if you want, Garika replied, stepping on the accelerator. Just don't use it on one of our own. Her voice took on an amused tone. Better you get it than let the idiots over at the MPD take it, or worse, let the garrison sell it for profit or pleasure. At least if it's in your hands, I can still benefit from it through you. Of course, this thing is dangerous. Proper testing is essential. No one wants to get wrecked by some random side effect. Owoshu raised an eyebrow. So, your department can keep artifacts this dangerous? You don't have to report or submit them? He wasn't asking just to be annoying. If SDS could hoard dangerous abyssal artifacts, it raised all sorts of red flags. Were they really a government agency? Or just a front for some personal profit machine? Of course we can, Garika said, completely unfazed. Chisato has one, doesn't she? I never asked her to turn it in. As long as it stays within the department, it doesn't matter who holds it. As for higher-ups, who gives a damn? They're useless garbage anyway. She finished her rant, then flamboyantly put on her sunglasses, looking like she couldn't care less. What I am worried about is that 7-star demon hunter still at large. One of their top agents sneaks into Tokyo, and the MPD morons don't even bother to notify me. Useless bastards. Owoshu smirked. Should I really be hearing all this about the infighting among you sky dragons at the top? Garika grinned wickedly. Of course you should. In fact, if you do manage to secure the heart of the demon, I could introduce you to a noble lady dragon from high society. With that face of yours and that artifact in your hand, getting whatever you want would just be a matter of a little hip movement. Seriously? Owoshu gave her a look of pure exasperation. Do I look like some degenerate warlord? No. Absolutely not. He sighed and stopped bickering with her, instead shifting topics. What happened to my neighbor? Is she okay? She's been released, Garika replied. Don't worry. I just had Chisato ask her a few things. Nothing as serious. You trust that kid, don't you? Chisato, huh? Yeah, I don't have any concerns there. Owoshu nodded, then hesitated. Still, I can't promise I'll actually find the artifact. And aren't those 7-star hunters still out there looking too? Are you seriously just letting Miss Tsubakahara wander around as bait? You think too much, Garika scoffed. This afternoon, the MPD requested aid from the Onmyoji Bureau. By now, they've probably already clashed. As for the rest, publicly, I only declared that we discovered a rogue hound. I never revealed any intel about the heart of the demon. No one's dumb enough to give up something like this once they've got a lead. Is that so? Owoshu finally relaxed, exhaling deeply. Well, that's a relief. After all, knowing some mysterious organization had its sights on you 24/7 was unnerving. Oh wait. He was also part of a secret organization. Never mind then. As he made a joke to himself to lighten the mood, Garika slowly hit the brakes. They were parked in front of his brightly lit apartment complex. Her voice was playful again. Sleep well tonight you wish. Owoshu grabbed his things and got out, slamming the door behind him. As he walked toward the building, Garika flashed the headlights and called out, remember to stay in touch. And find that thing fast. You're due to report at Lycoris the day after tomorrow. Got it. Owoshu casually waved a hand behind him. But after taking a few steps, squish. He stepped on something. Huh? Looking down, Owoshu spotted a deep red wallet on the ground. He blinked, then glanced back just in time to see Garika's white sedan disappear into the night. Staring at the wallet in his hand, Owoshu muttered in confusion, how the hell did this thing fall out? Chapter 29, Lady Myra Clack. The door swung open as Takabana Garika strode into the hotel room, casually closing it behind her. She called out toward the interior, Takina, what's the situation? They were in a business hotel room diagonally across from Owoshu's apartment. From the window, one could see straight into his building. By the window, beside a sniper rifle mounted on a stand, stood a high school girl with sleek black hair and a soft, rounded face. Wearing a school uniform, Inoue Takina didn't even glance back as she calmly reported, no unusual activity, Chief. No anomalies, huh? Alright, keep watch for 2 more days. Once Owoshu gets his hands on the item, we'll call off the surveillance. Garika approached with a hand on her waist, wearing a helpless expression. Still, I honestly didn't expect the daughter of Nolan Defense Corporation's secondarist to be living in a place like this. If her mother's side of the family knew about this, losing a rare demonic class abyssal artifact like that would be a serious blow. Just thinking about Nolan Defense's influence across the Americas made Garika uneasy. These large weapons dealers played by their own rules, and unless someone kept an eye on things, she wouldn't feel comfortable letting Owoshu get involved. If that young lady decided to pull the classic marry the hero move, Garika wasn't confident Owoshu wouldn't defect on the spot. Takina, you and Chisato will have to push through the next 2 days. Assist Owoshu in retrieving the item. Hey, things have already progressed this far. Takabana Garika, don't make a habit of returning empty-handed. By the way, where's Chisato? Off doing something again? Takina calmly answered, she went out to get coffee. Said it's for an all-nighter. Also, Chief. She glanced out the window. Owoshu has been standing at the entrance this whole time. He hasn't gone inside. What? Garika rushed to the window and, sure enough, saw Owoshu still standing at the entrance of his apartment building. At that very moment, Owoshu turned and looked up at her, flashing a grin and pointing at his phone. Bzzzzz. Garika picked up her vibrating phone and answered the call. Owoshu's magnetic voice came through, Chief. Shadow protection feels a bit outdated, doesn't it? Garika lifted a hand to her forehead and brushed back her bangs, looking down at him. If you knew I had someone watching all along, then what are you doing standing there now? She stared at him, exasperated. She'd gone through the trouble of entering the hotel through the underground parking lot at the back, specifically to avoid Luoshu discovering she was monitoring Myra Tsubakahara. Letting him know would risk complications. After all, having a rookie like him approach the daughter of a global arms magnate while aware of surveillance could easily lead to a misstep. And if that young lady kicked up a fuss, accusing SDS of spying, Luoshu, her supposed savior, might come out fine, but Garuka, as the department head, would be in serious trouble. Compared to offending the woman's powerful family, she'd rather butt heads with the Japanese government. At least the government had no control over the foreign military presence. In fact, earlier, if she'd been even a little late to fish Luoshu out of the local station, the garrison troops, probably acting under the orders of that young lady's family, would have already stormed in to seize him. While she was still inwardly grumbling, Luoshu's voice came through the phone again. I just wanted to remind you. Your wallet fell out. Again. Garuka instinctively checked her pocket. Empty. Her eyes immediately went to Luoshu. When did that happen? She muttered. Down below, Luoshu lightly tossed the wallet into the air and caught it, repeating the motion twice. Into the phone, he said, You're not coming to get it? A brief silence, and then Garuka sighed. Keep it with you for now. Prioritize getting that young lady in your apartment to hand over the artifact. If you can't get it, return the wallet to me tomorrow. If you can, then keep it. It's yours for the time being. Though it pained her to part with the lucky wallet, Garuka knew she couldn't blame Luoshu. The fault lay entirely with the abyssal artifact and its damn side effects. The wallet had been trying to migrate to Luoshu for a while now. Twice already, each time more ridiculous than the last. At this point, she might as well let it go. As long as it stayed in the family, it wasn't a complete loss. She hung up with a grumble. Unbelievable. Is that guy the goddess of luck's illegitimate son or something? That damn wallet keeps running to him like a dog. It's shameless. Of course, complaints aside, she was genuinely unsettled. She hadn't even opened the car door, let alone stepped out, and somehow the wallet had still managed to escape and land at Luoshu's feet. The implication couldn't be clearer. This artifact had no chill. Losing it felt like a stab to the gut. So, I'm holding on to the wallet, huh? Luoshu muttered as he looked up at the apartment building. He let out a small chuckle and shook his head. If she can put up with that kind of loss, then I must have saved someone really important. He sighed, pocketed the wallet, and entered the building. The elevator took him straight to the third floor. From the staircase, he stepped into the hallway and approached Unit 302. Raising his hand, he pressed the doorbell. Ding dong. After a short pause, the peephole on the door shifted open. Someone peeked out, then the door swung wide. Wearing a comfortable home dress, the bright-eyed beauty beamed. Come in, Luoshu. Luoshu blinked, a little caught off guard by her enthusiasm. But quickly, he composed himself. Then I'll impose. He stepped past Myra Tsubakahara and into the entranceway. As she gently closed the door behind them, she subtly flashed an OK hand signal toward a specific direction. Back in the hotel across the street, seeing Myra's signal, Inoue Takina immediately tensed. Chief, we've been made? She didn't spot us. She's signaling the Raijin security group to let them know she's safe. It's just to make sure Luoshu doesn't get sniped, Garuka said, lighting a cigarette with a cool tone. People who think ladies from powerful families are just hairheads usually end up dead. Meanwhile, in a higher floor suite of the hotel, a blonde Caucasian man wearing an eye patch gave a cold order, signal received. All non-essential personnel, withdraw according to Plan B. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, echoed the fully armed soldiers in room 301's entryway. Holding their rifles at the ready, they exchanged glances with teammates by the balcony, ready to intervene at a moment's notice. Back in the apartment, Luoshu stood in the entryway, a faint chill prickling the back of his neck. With a somewhat stiff expression, he reluctantly slid his feet into a pair of fuzzy bunny-eared slippers. Chapter 30, She Knows Too Well. Do you prefer coffee or black tea, Luoshu-kun? Dressed in a casual home outfit, Myra Tsubakahara stood in front of the tea cabinet, busily preparing drinks. Her long, glossy hair was tied back into a simple ponytail with a black satin ribbon, swaying gently behind her. An eye-catching sight. However, Luoshu was in no mood to admire her elegance. Instead, he glanced nervously toward room 301 next door, then at the balcony. His brows slowly furrowed in unease. Is something wrong? Myra turned around when she didn't hear a reply, looking at him curiously. When she saw where his gaze was aimed, toward the wall, her expression shifted in sudden realization. I'm so sorry. She pressed her palms together in apology, sticking out her tongue in embarrassment. Because of what happened today, my grandfather got worried and arranged for some people to temporarily stay in the room next door. You must have noticed them, right? Some people? Luoshu raised an eyebrow and cautiously asked, and what kind of people are they exactly? They're security personnel from the American-based Trajan Security Group. I heard they're part of a specialized unit trained to deal with, unusual individuals. Myra sighed helplessly as she spoke, clearly exasperated. My grandfather's always been uneasy about me living alone. He says we sold too many guns and now he's worried someone might target me. After today's incident, he got even more nervous. While she returned to grab some teacups, she muttered in complaint, seriously, I told him Japan is a gun-free country and crime rates are low. He doesn't need to be as paranoid as he was back in the States, but he never listens. Hearing that, Luoshu thought about what Miko had told him about the thriving weapons trade in Japan by foreign troops and nodded solemnly. No, I think your grandfather's concerns are perfectly reasonable. Miss Myra. Did you already forget that I was the one holding a gun and killing people earlier? Also, do you not know what it means to live next to the Grim Reaper's playground? You walk a few blocks past Ikebukuro and you hit Pika Town. The actual crime capital of Tokyo. Luoshu couldn't help but mentally rant. Huh? Myra blinked, clearly not expecting Luoshu to agree with her grandfather. Then she giggled. You sound just like him. Wary like a cat. Luoshu thought for a moment and replied, it's probably a professional hazard. Considering what she had said, Myra's grandfather was likely a high-profile arms dealer. Such a man probably knew more about the actual number of illegal firearms in Japan than Luoshu himself. Heck, it was entirely possible that the SIG P226 in his holster had been manufactured and sold by Myra's family. As they chatted, Myra opened a canister from the cabinet, donned a pair of disposable gloves, and carefully scooped some tea leaves into the teapot. She glanced over at Luoshu and said with slight annoyance, since you didn't answer for so long, I chose black tea for you. Hope that's alright? No complaints. Thank you, Luoshu replied as he took a seat on the white fabric sofa and looked around the living room. The decor was minimalistic and neat. A wall-mounted projection screen, the white sofa, a projector set up behind it, a compact dining area with matching furniture. Everything was coordinated and simple. The only unique piece was an oil painting by the sofa. A portrait of Myra Tsubakahara herself. Aside from that painting, the rest of the setup looked oddly familiar. Then it hit him. The layout of her place was almost identical to his apartment, just even more minimalist. It doesn't feel like someone actually lives here. As he mulled that over, Myra walked over carrying a cup of black tea. Before setting it down, she smiled and said, I added a bit of brandy. Hope that's alright? You mean sugar, right? Luoshu raised an eyebrow and gave her a knowing wink. Drinking at his age was illegal in Japan, so naturally, a little euphemism was in order. Ginger ale. Sugar. Something plausible. Myra blinked in surprise, then giggled as she set down the cup and covered her mouth. Yes, I meant sugar. I hope it's not too sweet. Well then, please enjoy this cup of black tea with sugar. Luoshu calmly lifted the cup, blew on it, and took a careful sip. The flavor was rich, with a subtle sweetness that lingered on the tongue. He couldn't pinpoint the exact type of tea leaves, but having grown up in a region famous for tea, Luoshu could tell. It was incredibly high-end. After a few sips, he looked up at Myra, who was quietly smiling at him while holding her own cup, and asked, Aren't you going to ask me anything? No, before that, I owe you an apology. Myra gave a gentle, apologetic smile and cradled her cup. Because of what happened earlier, my family did a bit of digging into your background, Luoshu-kun. So, I know you only just joined the SDS division under Chief Takabana today. I know it's a bit unethical, but I've already seen your internal file from the Metropolitan Police. Of course, the main reason she had done so was to confirm his identity and gauge how dangerous his situation with the police might be. Without that freshly approved file, the American military garrison would have probably rushed in to rescue him with full diplomatic immunity. You managed to find out that much in just 1 hour? What's next, my underwear color? Luoshu seriously began to question whether second-generation elites like Myra had already surpassed normal human capability in this era. No. Scratch that, she had cash powers. That explained everything. Seeing how candid and open she was, Luoshu chuckled and asked, And what did you think after reading my file? My impression? Myra looked surprised for a moment, not expecting the question. But then, noticing the playful look on Luoshu's face, she realized he was joking. With a light laugh, she said, If I had to put it into words, it was something like, Guess I'll be seeing you again soon. Oh. And a small sense of relief. Pretty ordinary thoughts, I think? Luoshu, who had been rather composed until now, suddenly lost his cool a little. Oh no. This one's dangerous. Definitely not type to handle casually. He took a deep breath, trying to compose himself, then deliberately shifted to business. Miss Tsubakahara, do you know why the hounds were tailing you? You mean this? Myra reached into her pocket and pulled out a small jewelry box. Opening it revealed a ring inlaid with a blood-red ruby. As the lid opened, Luoshu found himself staring into a vertical, unblinking pupil embedded within the gemstone. It was the eye, the heart of the demon. The moment that sinister gaze locked onto him, Luoshu's expression turned stone cold. Chapter 31, A Killer Question. Seeing Myra Tsubakahara take out the heart of the demon, Luoshu's expression briefly faltered, a flicker of surprise flashing across his face. He instinctively furrowed his brows and opened his system interface via mental command, half preparing to make a run for it, while eyeing Myra with deep suspicion. Myra-san, do you really understand what that thing is? He asked cautiously. It called itself the heart of the demon, she replied, then seemed to remember something. She turned to him with an apologetic expression and said, earlier, your friend. You know, the silver-haired girl full of energy. She asked me about this ring. I lied to her. I told her I didn't know where the ring was. But in truth, I've always known. It's been in my pocket this whole time, in a jewelry box. At first, it made me forget it existed after work, but then, it made me remember again. Luoshu fell silent for a few seconds after hearing that, before asking with growing wariness, then why did you choose this moment to show it to me? Recalling what Takabana had said about the side effects of the heart of the demon, everything began to click into place for Luoshu. The ring could suppress memories of it in women, making them forget it entirely. But if it could suppress, it could also restore. For some unknown reason, it had chosen to make Myra remember at this very moment. And that had led to their current situation. Myra hesitated for a moment before handing the jewelry box toward Luoshu, her voice carrying a tinge of distress. You may not believe me, but this ring seems to be alive. Alive? Luoshu repeated, looking down at the ring without reaching for it, trying to maintain a safe distance. Frankly, he already found it unsettling enough when Myra said it had made her forget about it. And now this. Yet strangely, Luoshu had the uncanny feeling that the eye within the red gemstone, the one embedded in the ring, was looking at him with flattery, almost as if trying to win favor. Was it just his imagination? While Luoshu was still pondering, Myra offered further explanation, her tone uncertain. Actually, when I returned to the apartment earlier, I did message the security team. From Myra's side of the story, Luoshu pieced together a new perspective on the events. As it turned out, she hadn't returned to the apartment recklessly. Her plan had been to handle things with care and avoid civilian casualties. Specifically, she had been relying on the residents of rooms 201, 301, and 305, all of whom were female bodyguards trained by official Japanese agencies, rumored to be from the same team that protected the Prime Minister. Apparently, that had been one of the conditions Myra negotiated with her grandmother to live independently. Her plan was to retreat home and have the on-call bodyguards deal with the stalkers while she evacuated under their protection. But as she reached the front entrance, the heart of the demon influenced her, prompting her to pull Luoshu in and ask for help. That single moment changed the entire course of events. Because of Luoshu's intervention, they went to the 4th floor, then ended up on the 5th. The pursuer followed, but they had completely bypassed the 3rd floor, where the bodyguards had deployed. By the time Luoshu climbed back down to the 3rd floor via the emergency escape on the balcony, the guards had already found Myra and secured her in room 503. Then came the part where Luoshu shot at the hounds on the 4th floor. Because of the gunfire, Myra was kept secured in room 503 the entire time under heavy protection. Luoshu, meanwhile, was discovered by patrolling officials after discharging a weapon and was forced to cooperate, ultimately leaving with the police from the 1st floor without being able to return. After sorting all of this out, Luoshu sighed and rubbed his forehead, trying to ease the throbbing in his head. So, even if I hadn't done anything, you would have been fine? You've got the wrong idea, Luoshu-kun. Myra leaned across the table, placing both palms on its surface and moving her face closer to his. At such a distance, her intensity seemed magnified tenfold. Let's not assume I and the bodyguards would have been able to handle those inhuman opponents without your help. You took the initiative to use lethal force before the hound could escape. That undoubtedly protected my life. So yes, the fact that you saved me. That's an undeniable truth. Hearing her firm and sincere tone, Luoshu instinctively leaned back and raised his hands in a gesture of mock surrender. All right, I get it. Yes, I'm your lifesaver. Is that good enough for you? Yes. I'm glad you understand, Myra smiled warmly and sat back in her seat. Seeing her that way, Luoshu couldn't help but feel a little strange. Who so eagerly insists on being in someone's debt? It was bizarre. Just what kind of logic circuits did these female leads run on? He glanced again at the ring in the box. The one with the flattering gaze. And frowned. So, Going by what you're saying. Myra. Just call me Myra, or Ms. Myra if you must, she interrupted, raising a finger to stop him. Luoshu looked at her for a moment, then adjusted his words. So, Miss Myra, are you saying the ring deliberately manipulated you into getting closer to me? Well, under the circumstances, yes. But things are different now, she replied, pausing mysteriously before emphasizing her last few words. Luoshu narrowed his eyes at her. He didn't press the issue, but his instincts told him something was off, very suspicious. First the wallet, now this ring. What is it? Myra asked, noticing his sudden silence. Thinking of how his lucky wallet had mysteriously ended up with him twice now, Luoshu had a sinking feeling. He casually brushed it off with a nothing, then mentally contacted the system that called itself Servant of the Gods. System. Is it because of something special about me that both the wallet and this ring keep gravitating toward me? Ding. Answer. Under certain conditions, active abyssal artifacts will instinctively approach the most suitable host to seek further evolution. I don't think I'm capable of evolving anything right now, Luoshu muttered to himself. But the pieces were coming together. So this flashy title, Lord of the Divine Assembly, Future God King, was actually useful for once? Still, if these so-called active artifacts were flocking to him hoping for an upgrade, weren't they basically just clinging to a thigh? But aren't you guys more powerful than me? Feels like I'm the one clinging to you. Suppressing the thought, Luoshu hesitated for a moment and looked at Myra. Let me ask again. Are you really sure you want to give this ring to me? Honestly, it's a bit awkward, but I'm pretty sure that even if I accepted this abyssal artifact, I couldn't possibly give something of equal value in return. It was true. He could have taken it for free. But Luoshu wasn't the type to casually mooch off a heroine. Not when he still planned to milk her for points later. He needed to maintain a good relationship, after all. No, I never expected repayment. Besides, the ring clearly wants to be with you anyway. Myra nodded and was about to urge him to take it, but suddenly paused, her eyes narrowing as she glanced at the ring. As if remembering something, she spoke up again with a trace of curiosity. But if you really feel guilty, how about this? Just tell me what this ring actually does. We'll call that even. She looked genuinely puzzled. There's something strange about it. Whenever I touch it, I feel inexplicably uneasy. What kind of power does it have? Luoshu was about to answer. But the words caught in his throat. Wasn't this ring's power hypnosis against women? That was definitely a killer question that he absolutely could not answer. Chapter 32, The reason SDS was established. Faced with Myra Tsubakahara's killer question, Luoshu's expression stiffened. He neither wanted to explain the ring's ability to her nor fabricate some lie just to dodge the topic. As a result, his face was locked in an awkward grimace. Sitting across from him, Myra seemed to pick up on his discomfort. After glancing at him briefly, she softly offered, if it's some kind of confidential matter, then please just forget I asked. It's not exactly confidential, Luoshu admitted after a pause. Although a certain immoral thought had flitted through his mind earlier, he wasn't so far gone as to let his lower half control his brain. After a brief silence, he finally explained in a measured tone, that ring which called itself the Heart of the Demon. It originally belonged to a member of the transnational crime syndicate True Celestial Astronomy. Its function is mental manipulation targeted at women. I think you can probably grasp the implications. Myra blinked slowly at his words, seemingly frozen for a moment. You mean? As the realization dawned on her, she instinctively scooted her chair back, further away from the jewelry box on the table. Seeing this, Luoshu decided to just rip the bandage off and nodded. Yeah, its effect is hypnosis. Specifically, a particularly vile kind that only works on women. According to intel from Chief Takabana, quite a few European film stars were victimized by the previous owner of this ring. After hearing all that, Myra clenched the cushion beside her nervously and looked up at Luoshu. Luoshu-kun, you wouldn't use something like that on me, would you? Luoshu rolled his eyes. What do you think? He said, clearly unimpressed. Here he was, going out of his way to explain the danger of the ring so she'd be on guard, and now she was doubting him? Should I just make you a mother in 10 months then? With twins, perhaps? He grumbled internally. I'm sorry, Myra quickly apologized, noticing the irritation on his face. I didn't mean to suspect you. It's just that ability is really disturbing. If possible, please seal it away completely. I will, Luoshu promised. Though he felt slightly guilty, he still gave his word like a proper man would. At the very least, he wasn't going to use it on her. Myra, still feeling uneasy, grabbed the white pillow nearby and hugged it tightly, taking a few deep breaths. Then, as if suddenly remembering something, she looked back at Luoshu and said, if possible, don't hand that ring over to Chief Takabana's backers. Zeus Industries. Luoshu blinked, caught off guard. He hesitated, unsure whether to ask further. Noticing his uncertainty, Myra took the initiative to explain, "From what I've heard from my family, Chief Takabana is very close with a high-ranking woman at Zeus Industries. Apparently, they were classmates in university. That corporation is obsessed with collecting abyssal artifacts like this and using them for research. Especially to develop more powerful military tech. It's because of their push, along with that executive and Chief Takabana, that SDS was even created. To collect abyssal artifacts across Japan. So, please. Don't let the heart of the demon fall into her hands," she added seriously. "To protect innocent women from being harmed." Before Luoshu could even react, Myra continued, "Also, if my family ever comes into contact with you, please don't mention this ring to them either." She looked helpless as she said that. "My family shares the same mindset as Zeus Industries. Or more accurately, all 6 major arms manufacturers in America view abyssal artifacts the same way." "So, Takabana's backer is Zeus Industries? One of the big 6 U.S. arms conglomerates? No wonder she can order around station troops and doesn't even bother with local Japanese authorities. She's working for Daddy's boss." Luoshu thought with growing cynicism. Before he transmigrated, Luoshu already knew how shady American arms giants were. Now, even in this world, they were just as ruthless. Capable of controlling secret organizations remotely. No wonder their influence was terrifying. So, Myra's family is also tied to one of these weapon giants. That explains why Takabana won't mess with her casually, but still wanted me to secure the heart of the demon. She's afraid they'll get their hands on it first. As these thoughts ran through his mind, Luoshu nodded earnestly. "Don't worry. I won't let anyone else touch this thing. I'll just use some points to forge a fake one. No big deal. I am the head of a shadow organization after all. A half-baked one, sure, but still." Luoshu contacted the system in his mind and found that crafting a fake version would only cost 300 points. A bargain. Incidentally, he had also checked the value of both the Heart of the Demon and the Lucky Wallet. The former required 60,000 points to replicate, while the latter cost 80,000. That price tag made Luoshu's heart clench a little. "You mean even my family?" Myra reminded him pointedly. "Of course, them too," Luoshu nodded, though in his head he couldn't help but wonder why she was so insistent. Did she think her family would get special treatment from him or something? "Are you maybe overestimating your influence on me?" Luoshu held back the urge to make that snarky comment. No need to shoot himself in the foot by being blunt. Seeing him agree, Myra gave a faint smile, though it quickly faded into a neutral expression. Luoshu, meanwhile, was still mentally calculating the cost of those 2 abyssal artifacts when he suddenly acted like he'd just remembered something, pulled out his phone, and checked the time. It was 9:15 p.m. Seeing the time, Luoshu finished off his tea, closed the box containing the heart of the demon, and stood up, making his intentions clear. "It's getting late. I should probably take my leave." He glanced at Myra to gauge her reaction. Myra quickly pulled out her own phone and then looked surprised. "Ah, it's almost bedtime already?" She immediately stood up. "Let me walk you out." "No need. I'm just next door." He pointed to the wall of room 303. "Healthy sleeping schedule, huh? Good for her," Luoshu mused. "Unlike me, who can't keep a routine to save my life." Realizing that Luoshu was staying right next to her, Myra chuckled. "Oh, that's right. You're just next door." She then pulled out her phone, opened the Line app, and playfully waved the screen at him with a sweet smile. "Oh? Oh." Luoshu finally caught on, and they exchanged Line IDs. At the door, he put on his shoes, stepped outside, and turned back to glance at Myra, who stood just behind the half-open door. "See you tomorrow, Luoshu-kun," Myra said, waving lightly. "See you tomorrow, Miss Myra." The door closed. Luoshu walked back to his room with a heavy heart. He really needed to research these 2 uninvited abyssal artifacts and figure out just what the hell they were. Back inside, Myra leaned against the door, gazing toward the entrance steps and murmured to herself, "He's 8 whole years younger than me." Chapter 33, Even Artifacts Compete Fingerprint Scan. Click. As Luoshu pushed open the door and entered his home, he took a deep breath. Walking over to the sofa, he ignored the shattered window glass and the clothes that had been thrown to the floor earlier. Wordlessly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out 2 items, a deep blue gift box containing the Heart of the Demon and a dark red Lucky Wallet. He placed both abyssal artifacts on the glass coffee table, pushing aside the leftover cup noodles from the day before, then slumped onto the couch. His eyes locked onto the 2 items as he fell into deep thought, clearly considering how to handle them. Living abyssal artifacts, huh? Luoshu muttered as he stared at the pair in front of him. Then, he called out calmly, "System. I am here, How do I communicate with these two abyssal artifacts? He asked. Target artifacts are classified as living. They possess a degree of instinctual behavior but lack developed intelligence. Dialogue is not possible. Luoshu paused for a moment at the answer but then let out a quiet sigh of relief. If these two artifacts had no intelligence, then their previous behaviors, like the lucky wallet falling out of his pocket twice, or the heart of the demon leading Myra to him, could be chalked up to instinct. And if it was just instinct, it meant no mastermind was plotting against him from the shadows. Of course, that was assuming the system's explanation wasn't a lie. Luoshu never thought too highly of himself. In his past life, he was just an ordinary guy. It wasn't like he was so important that someone would go to such lengths to manipulate him. If a truly powerful entity had wanted to snatch these artifacts, they could have done so by force. If there really was someone so bored they'd go for this convoluted approach, then he might as well accept his fate. With that thought, Luoshu issued a new command: System, reanalyze the two abyssal artifacts. Artifact identification was free of charge. As the system had claimed, it spared no effort when it came to helping Luoshu grow stronger. Identification results as follows: Artifact, Heart of the Demon, Elite Tier, formed from the heart of an elite class succubus who died unexpectedly, then refined through alchemical means. Main ability, hypnotize women below the elite tier. Produces 1 drop of succubus blood, excellent tier, per calendar year. Side effects: 1. Cannot be actively used by females. 2. Hypnosis is nullified if the user dies. 3. Repeated use on the same target causes obsessive desire toward the user, drastically enhancing her basic stats and transforming her into a succubus. Artifact, Lucky Wallet, Heroic Tier, crafted by a grand alchemist using a scale from the demigod tier creature Serpent of Fate. Main ability, when the wallet contains both a photo ID and money, and is lost while being worn, retrieving it grants the user 1 instance of demigod level luck. Side effects: 1. Wallet will instinctively seek a more fortunate owner. 2. If no photo ID is present, ownership is void. 3. After 3 losses, even if recovered, it will abandon its owner. After carefully reading the descriptions, Luoshu furrowed his brow and stared at the 2 items. Then he asked tentatively, System, can you recycle these 2 abyssal artifacts? The moment he asked that question, the ring inside the gift box and the wallet both trembled simultaneously. As if they understood his intent, they began shoving against each other on the small table, jostling for space like 2 kids fighting over attention. Each trying to push the other off the table in hopes of being the one Luoshu would keep. Reply: the system has no recycling function. Furthermore, possessing gifted artifacts increases the host's influence and monthly point income. Please be advised, no recycling, huh? Luoshu sighed in disappointment. If he could recycle them, he could have cashed in big, 80,000 points for the wallet and 60,000 for the ring. That's a fortune. As it stood, while he was asset rich, he didn't exactly have liquid wealth, which was just awkward. So, I'm basically stuck keeping these around and using them, huh? The moment Luoshu said that, the ring and the wallet stopped fighting and dropped back onto the table with a thud. If it hadn't been for the ring-shaped indent on the wallet that caught the ring, Luoshu might have even doubted that they had been fighting in the first place. Speaking of which, I didn't gain any points when I picked these up. Is it because I'm not their official holder yet? Correct. To confirm ownership of the heart of the demon, it must be worn on the ring finger. To confirm ownership of the wallet, a valid ID must be stored inside, along with at least 150,000 yen in cash. Risk of loss still applies. Luoshu fell silent for a moment, his gaze lingering on the words risk of loss in particular. Then he asked the artifacts, almost theatrically, alright then. You too. What benefits do I get for keeping you? Sitting on the couch at night and seriously questioning a ring and a wallet might seem absurd, but both abyssal artifacts actually responded. The heart of the demon, with its crimson gemstone and vertical pupil, seemed to weep, releasing 2 shimmering drops of red liquid before dimming slightly. The wallet, not to be outdone, spat out Takabana's driver's license, followed by stacks of 10,000 yen bills. One after another. Until it had expelled 30 of them. Then it stopped moving. Luoshu glanced at the ring. So your offer is 2 drops of succubus blood? What good is that? Answer: 2 drops of succubus blood can upgrade a common ability like mind reading into the excellent tier ability hypnosis. Your follower, Kasumijoka Utaha, can use it to raise her ability rank. As much as I want to ask if this means Kasumijoka Utaha's going to evolve into a succubus, I guess I'll let that slide for now. Unable to resist, Luoshu muttered a complaint, then immediately imagined what Utaha would look like as a succubus. Just as his body started to react, he snapped out of it, cut off the fantasy, and reached for the ring, slipping it onto his ring finger. He then picked up the wallet and opened it. Inside the wallet, The transparent plastic sleeve was clearly meant to hold an ID. Peeking in, Luoshu found a single 100 yen coin. His expression turned strange. So other people need to put in 150,000 yen as activation collateral, but for me, 100 yen is enough? The coin jumped inside the wallet, landing right on the text as if affirming it. Alrighty then. With a shrug, Luoshu gathered the cash on the table, added his own money, and stashed it all in the inner pocket of his blazer. Then he folded up his student ID, placed it in the wallet, and slid the wallet into his pocket. Looks like having living artifacts isn't so bad after all, he remarked playfully. I just hope these side effects don't actually apply to me. As if in response to the artifact's earlier bootlicking, the system flashed a prompt: side effects of abyssal artifacts will not apply to the host unless they exceed the system's upper limit. Oh? Even you are pledging loyalty now? Luoshu laughed helplessly, shaking his head as he leaned back on the sofa in a relaxed sprawl. System, list out my current accumulated points. As soon as he finished speaking. Ding. The familiar notification chime rang out. Chapter 34, Excellent Abilities. Ding. A series of notifications popped up in front of Luoshu's eyes. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the elite tier artifact Heart of the Demon. Points awarded, 5,000. Monthly fixed income increased by 500 points. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the heroic tier artifact Lucky Wallet. Points awarded, 8,000. Monthly fixed income increased by 800 points. Current total points, 27,983. Monthly fixed income, 2,300 points, almost 28,000 points in savings, and a monthly income of 2,300. I guess I did come out ahead in the end. Although it was a little frustrating that he couldn't sell the artifacts, when he thought it over, the long-term influence income from possessing abyssal artifacts outweighed the one-time benefit of selling them. With that realization, the sense of regret quickly faded. Well, since I've gotten this much, it wouldn't hurt to spend a little. But there's no rush. He opened the Astronomy Club internal network via the system. Luoshu wasn't sure what the system had based the design on, but it looked suspiciously like the messaging app he used back in his old world. Although the system assured him that this internal network was secure, encrypted, and free from eavesdropping, the familiar layout gave him both nostalgic comfort and a bit of financial paranoia. Let's see if Arari and Utaha are online. Since the network was internal and accessible only to his followers, whether someone was asleep or awake could be seen at a glance. Colored icons meant online, black and white for offline. A colored icon with an exclamation mark indicated busy, and skull icons, whether in color or grayscale, signaled danger. It was practically better than surveillance software. Unfortunately, both of their avatars were black and white. What the hell? Arari, a hardcore Jin artist who burns the midnight oil, and Kasumi Utaha, a tragic author who rewrites into the night. They both went to bed early. You two aren't usually this wholesome. Just yesterday, Kasumi had chatted with him in bed until 3 a.m., refusing to let him sleep. Now that he was away, she suddenly decided to have an early night? Real classy, Kasumi. Well, I originally wanted to talk to them about the SDS matter and inform them that I plan to bring Myra-san into the group. Guess I'll have to proceed first and let them know afterward. That's right. Luoshu had wanted to reach out to his two hidden dragons and crouching tiger not only to inform them of potential new recruit Tsubakahara Myra, but also to start preparing them for a little background education. Since he had unintentionally joined an official organization, it made sense to keep his followers informed about the broader world they were now involved in. And given Myra's status, not only a heroine candidate but also someone with deep connections and a positive attitude toward him, Luoshu naturally wanted to recruit her as well. Still, to maintain harmony and fairness within the group, Luoshu wanted to at least notify his current followers. It was only right to appear democratic. Even the shameless US throws around words like freedom and democracy. How could Luoshu not play along? Unfortunately, for reasons unknown, both of the Night Owl girls were asleep. Could it be because I told Kasumi yesterday that going to bed early is good for your health? Is she really that obedient? He muttered inwardly. After a sigh, he opened up the system again. System, list the upgrade conditions for intuition and combat potential. Super intuition, advanced version of intuition. Rated excellent, upgrade requirements, primary material, brain of the mystic squid, 10,000 points. No supplementary materials required, subconscious control, advanced version of combat potential. Rated excellent, upgrade requirements, primary material, spinal cord of the mind dragon, 10,000 points. No supplementary materials required. Reading through the upgrade paths, Luoshu sat up straight on the sofa and then walked into the kitchen to fetch 2 glasses. He set them down on the coffee table, took a deep breath, and said, If I didn't have intuition and combat potential working together today, I probably would have gotten taken out by that demon hunter's hound. This just proves how important support skills are. In that case, forget saving up 50,000 points for wind element control. Let's improve what we can right now. He tried to rationalize the decision aloud, partly to brace himself in case the materials tasted absolutely vile. After a brief pause, Luoshu redeemed the brain of the mystic squid and the spinal cord of the mind dragon. In the next second, a dark brown, brain-like lump and a milky white, sticky substance that looked suspiciously like melted ice cream appeared in the glasses. So that was what those materials looked like. He asked the system how to consume them and was assured that drinking them both together was fine. Staring at the two substances that, while gross-looking, weren't entirely inedible, Luoshu hesitated only a moment longer before grabbing some hot water and pouring it in. Bon appetit. He muttered and gulped one glass down in one go, then followed with the second, forcing it down despite the thick, slimy texture. Hic. Letting out a most unflattering burp, his vision suddenly blurred. He saw a branching tree extending infinitely outward from his mind's eye, stretching deep into the void. A high-pitched ringing filled his ears, and his body temperature spiked past 40 degrees Celsius. His skin turned bright red. And yet, strangely enough, he didn't feel unwell. Instead, a strange sense of relaxation swept over him. Once the sensation faded and Luoshu slowly opened his eyes again, the sunlight streaming through the shattered window caused him to squint instinctively. Morning already? Looking at the sunlight pouring onto the sofa, he fumbled around for his phone. 7 a.m. Luoshu stared in silence, then muttered with a complicated expression, "Did my abilities actually get upgraded? Confirmation, intuition has evolved into super intuition. Combat potential has evolved into subconscious control. Host now possesses 3 excellent tier abilities. Influence rating has been upgraded to excellent." Letting out a long sigh, Luoshu muttered, "So you need 3 excellent abilities to move up the rank, huh? But aside from feeling more awake than usual, I don't notice much difference." Just as he spoke, he had a vague sense, like a glimpse into the near future, that Tsubaka Haramira was standing outside his door, reaching out as if to knock, then withdrawing her hand, repeatedly hesitating. Snapping back to reality, Luoshu quietly got up, walked to the entryway, and opened the front door. Just arriving at his door, Myra had only raised her hand halfway when the door swung open to reveal Luoshu's face, making her freeze in place with a dumbfounded expression. Luoshu smiled at the stunned woman at his doorstep. "Good morning, Myra-san." "System, I take back what I said earlier. This near-future foresight really does live up to the excellent rating." Chapter 35, A Breakfast Visit. Hearing Luoshu's greeting, Tsubaka Haramira quickly recovered from her daze. With a smile so elegant that not even Luoshu could find fault with it, she nodded and returned the greeting. "Good morning, Luoshu-kun. Did you sleep well last night?" Carrying her handbag with graceful composure, her expression was curious, as if subtly probing for something. "Me? Slept like a baby till morning," Luoshu replied casually. It was technically true. Even if that sleep only came after his abilities evolved. He added the clarification silently in his heart, then lifted his gaze to meet Myra's and suddenly realized. He could now sense the emotion behind her eyes. Huh? I can even feel what others are feeling now? He was a bit surprised by his newfound perceptiveness, but didn't dwell on it long. He turned slightly and said warmly, "You've been standing out there for a while. Come in and sit down. Then. I'll be intruding." Myra smiled with just the right amount of hesitation, taking small, graceful steps into the apartment. Meanwhile, not far away, inside a hotel suite, Nishikigi Chisato let out a loud, delighted "oh," as she peered through a telescope, a cookie stick dangling from her mouth. "What's going on?" Inoue Tekina, who had been dozing in the corner wrapped in a blanket, shot to her feet. She rushed over to the sniper rifle and peered through the scope toward Luoshu's apartment. What she saw was the tail end of Luoshu and Tsubaka Haramira entering his room together. Tekina's mind instantly filled with a cascade of. At that moment, Chisato exclaimed excitedly, "Impressive, Luoshu. He got her into his room after just one day? Could it be that our cafe's only handsome guy is about to be claimed by a curvy, high society Ajao-sama?" Hearing Chizato's teasing tone, Tekina, who had thought there was a threat or enemy attack, felt a different kind of tension rise in her chest. Her fists clenched. "Literally. Chisato." Tekina growled, gritting her teeth and glaring daggers at her companion. Chisato tilted her head innocently, blinking at Tekina's fiery gaze. You're awake? Want me to order breakfast for you?" "No need." Tekina straightened, walked over to a chair, and took a bite of the cookie stick herself. She asked calmly while chewing, "Nothing happened during the latter half of the night?" Chisato shook her head. "Nope. Whether it was us, security upstairs, or any possible threats. Nobody moved. I see. Takina rubbed her chin thoughtfully. Could it be the demon hunter's hound never reported back? Or maybe that jewelry store clerk didn't include any information about this place in the files she handed over. It's too bad the director's memory retrieval device only works on the dead. Otherwise, we wouldn't be this blind right now. Want some coffee? Chisato held up a cold can from beside her. No thanks. Takina paused, then added, let's switch shifts. I'll take over for now. If anything happens, I'll let you know. Sure. Chisato gave her a pat on the shoulder. Don't stress out too much, Takina. Believe in Luoshu-kun. He'll get the job done. But he's still just a rookie, Takina replied, a bit exasperated. Only Chisato would trust an untrained newcomer this much. Yeah, but Luoshu-kun's a genius. Chisato grinned and leaped onto the nearby bed. I'm so tired. This time I'm definitely sleeping in. Takina gave her a silent, unimpressed look before lying down prone behind the sniper rifle, peering once again through the scope and resuming her surveillance. Sorry, I don't have any guest slippers. Only men's indoor ones. Hope you don't mind. Japan's practice of separating indoor and outdoor shoes was strict. After moving here, Luoshu had adapted to the custom easily. His hometown had similar habits, though there, shoes were kept outside the door, whereas here they were left in the genkan inside. He grabbed a pair of checkered slippers and placed them upside down in front of Myra to make them easier to step into, then headed toward the living room. Myra glanced down at the men's slippers thoughtfully, then slipped off her heels and put them on before walking inside. As she entered the room, she noticed the uncleaned instant noodles and empty glasses on the glass table. She blinked, surprised. Realizing the oversight, Luoshu quickly glanced at the mess and let out an awkward laugh. Ah. Sorry. Typical single guy. Bit of a slob. Oh, I see. Myra chuckled and walked over to the sofa, where she spotted his school uniform jacket tossed casually over the backrest. She stared at it for a second, then looked at Luoshu's still wrinkled suit and couldn't help but giggle. Don't tell me. You slept in that? Luoshu scratched his cheek, looking a bit sheepish. He hurried to gather the clothes from the floor, tossed them into the laundry machine, then fetched a cloth from the kitchen to wipe down the table and clean up the empty containers. Sorry about the mess, he said again. Myra stifled her laughter, teasing gently, maybe you should consider getting a girlfriend. Luoshu paused at that and gave it serious thought before shaking his head. I don't think I'm ready to be responsible for someone else's life. Luoshu-kun, you're more serious than I expected. Myra gave him a surprised look, clearly not expecting such a heartfelt response to what was meant as a light-hearted joke. After clearing everything, Luoshu considered brewing some tea, but hesitated. His cheap variety might not suit Myra's taste. Slowing his pace, he asked, I have black tea and coffee. Which would you prefer? To his surprise, Myra smiled and replied, just hot water is fine for me. Hot water, huh? Luoshu headed over to the thermos. He found it still half full with water he'd boiled the previous morning and was about to dump it out when Myra added, as long as the water in the thermos is less than 3 days old, it's perfectly fine. Luoshu blinked and showed a somewhat complicated expression. He sighed, then fetched 2 clean cups, poured the water, and sat down, handing one to Myra. By the way, what brings you here so early? He asked. There's actually something I wanted to give you. Myra opened her handbag and pulled out a sheet of paper, rotating it toward him and handing it over. This is the document I asked the lawyer to prepare yesterday. It just arrived. Luoshu looked down at the paper. His eyes immediately caught the title at the top, Real Estate Ownership Transfer Agreement, Chapter 36, where accomplices now staring at the property transfer agreement laid on the table. Luoshu was momentarily stunned, then looked up at Tsubakahara Myra. This might come across as a little utilitarian, she said with a gentle smile as she handed over the agreement, but for me, giving up a house in exchange for Luoshu-kun's nearby protection is quite the worthwhile bargain. Myra emphasized that this transfer was nothing more than a transaction for security services. Luoshu couldn't help but let out a wry chuckle at that. I don't recall any security company ever charging a house as their service fee. This wasn't just any property. It was an apartment near Kabukuro Station in Narama Ward. Even 3 years ago, it had been worth over 50 million yen. While property values in Japan tended to be relatively stable, the prices in this area had surged lately thanks to its proximity to Bika Town. Luoshu made a rough estimate, it could easily be sold for around 60 million yen. Converted to this world's currency,